Welcome, everybody. Good evening. It's the Ojai City Council and Ojai Redevelopment Agency, successor agency, regular meeting, 7 p.m. Tuesday, October 13, 2015. May I have roll call?
Councilmember Clapp. Councilmember Wyrick.
Here.
Councilmember Haney.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz.
Here.
Mayor Lara.
Here. Could Mayor Pro Tem Blatz lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
After me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just so that everyone knows the format of this meeting, there's an agenda packet right outside. We're going to start off with some presentations. Then we're going to go into public communication. I'll explain what that is when we get to that section. Then we'll go into our agenda and the consent calendar, et cetera. But before we do that, I wanted to see, there was interest from other council members that I received to move one particular item right after public comment, which is reports from council members. And I just wanted to get to see if the majority of the council supported that or not. If they want to do it.
I'm a yes on that.
I have no objection to that.
I have none.
No, with hearing the majority of the council, then we'll move that item right after the public communication segment of the meeting, and we'll explain what that is. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's council members' reports from probably the committees that we're a part of outside of what our duties and responsibilities are as council members. So our first presentation is going to be the Ojai Day poster, and it's going to be presented by Ms. Young, the Ojai Day coordinator.
Bear with me for just a second. We're going to rock it old school a little bit. Sorry.
And so people know we have Ojai Day this Saturday. If you guys aren't aware. Now you guys are aware of that.
Everybody was aware, right? So this Saturday is our annual Ojai Day festival. We're getting pretty excited about it. This is this year's poster. It was selected by our poster selection committee, which is comprised of local artists and team members who work on Ojai Day. This is called Lake Oak. It's by local artist Kent Butler. And we are just really honored to have such a talented artist, and his technique is amazing. And we're just felt really fortunate to find a piece that is just both so beautiful and also so well demonstrates the iconic oak tree that we fight so hard to protect here in Ojai. So that's part of the reason it was selected, and we're really happy to share it with you.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions?
Maybe want to turn it to the rest of everyone can see, maybe. It's beautiful.
It's amazing, yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. They really are.
Thank you, Ms. Young, for the presentation. Is there any?
I have a couple of other things. Sorry. I should mention that the poster is sponsored by Herald Printing out of Saticoy. They very generously donate all of the printing of the posters to us so that we can use the funds that we raise to by selling the poster at City Hall and the Recreation Department and at the information booth on Ojai Day to help pay for our annual festival. So. And then in addition to the poster, I'm going to sneak something in. I'm going to present the T-shirt that we had. We ran a T-shirt contest as well. And this was done by a 13-year-old artist. And Ojai Printworks will be selling these at Ojai Day out of their trailer for I don't know how much, but it's really lovely. It's by a 13-year-old artist whose name is, is Arlie. And he just did a fantastic job. I'm really excited. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you so much. Anything in particular that we should know about Ojai Day? What time it starts?
Ojai Day runs from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then Ojai Night runs in the Los Caporales parking lot, run by the Lions Club from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. with live music and tacos and beer and wine and all that good stuff. Make sure you check out all of our stages. They are fully stocked with local talent. We're very excited about that. And just come have a safe, great day with your families.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And in the spirit of Ojai Day, we're going to have another presentation, the Livy Park that has been under construction by Mr. Grant. Libby Park slide playground. The playground. Sorry, it's playground.
We're just thinking about that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think we have a quick slideshow. We can update you on the construction of the Libby Playground. Can you bring that up? Oh, right. Yeah. Let's see. I always need help. On this. Blue arrow. Blue arrow. There you go. Okay, there it goes. There's no blue arrow. That's the trick. White arrow. Yeah. Okay, well, I think everybody knows we've been working on the playground for some time now with committees and commissions and the council and everybody else, and it's been quite a journey. I think probably about 6 months of really heavy effort, but certainly way back before that we started pulling things together on this. So we kicked it off last Tuesday with a major effort with the volunteers, and it was kind of a nice momentum we developed on Tuesday. It was a little bit cooler, and then earlier in the week it's kind of low 80s, and I think we started with about 30 or 40 volunteers. And Dawn Shook was the chair of the food committee, and she kicked it right off with a bunch of great coffee and food out there. Every day she took care of the meals. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner for every shift that was working out there. So it was a great week, and of course it got hot, as everybody knows. Friday somehow the nightmare came, and we had our 100-degree day, and that was a pretty tough day to work out there. But you might have noticed, and I'll show you in a picture here, is we ended up pilfering the old shade that was over the Libby Bowl and used it, and we dragged it over the whole thing. And so that helped quite a bit as a temporary shade out here. But I guess this is the quick demo. That's the old playground. It's kind of a thing of the past at this point. It's actually out at the Montessori School, if you'd like to see it. I don't think they've installed it yet, but it's out there. And so it's recycled with Montessori School. A small portion they didn't want went to the Valley Oaks Charter School, so they've got the rest of it out there. And so this is the little reminder. I think we had, of all that wood fiber that comes out, special wood fiber for kids to bounce on and not get hurt. I think there's 100 dump truck loads of that came out. That was kind of amazing. So pre-construction, there's a surveyor there, and he's surveying every stake, every little column that we put in. And there was 160 of those out there, so we had 160 holes, and we had to go excavate with the little bobcats. We had one going, we knew we'd never make it, so we landed up with two. We knew we still weren't going to make it, so we had 3 of them going at one time. And so we got all 160 holes dug, and we had the Native American tribe monitor out there, as well as the archaeological monitor, and we did find an artifact, so it was really worthwhile to have the monitoring out there. And here we are at our registration booth, and we had signs out in the street, and a lot of the Lions Club was absolutely critical to this whole thing. They've done a spectacular job pulling everybody together, and got volunteers up front. We had a lot coming through at the same time during the project. I think that's QTR Kono there. I'm saying his name wrong. Kona. Quana. Yeah, Quana, excuse me. So, and he did a great job. Some of these key guys that are contractor, carpentry-oriented guys just tear it up out there. They were critical for leading teams of volunteers. So you can see a few holes had to be shifted out there after everything was aligned, and I think City Manager Clark was out there the first day, finding out firsthand about that. So that was a tough shift that first day, getting out there to pick bars. It's amazingly hard clay down about a foot or so. It's really hard to chip away at these holes. And you can see all these poles going up like mad everywhere. I think everybody got a little nervous for those high poles, but they were cut down to the exact size. And there's all these, the consultant we work with is Play by Design, had all their tables out there. This first thing that was built, these big tables that hold all the saws, and everybody was out marking lumber, and it was cut precisely by people, and we had a crew routing all the lumber as soon as it was all done, and pre-drilling things there. And I think that says Rob on the shirt there, not that this was a setup in any way, but And I think that's Richard next to him, is Richard from Ojai Lumber, who helped us a lot in this project too. Richard MacArthur. So they can kind of get a feel for the project coming along. On the left-hand side, that's the art component, where they're going to have the arch with the alphabet letters and the different shapes that go up over the arch, and they had to be very precisely placed because it's pre-constructed off-site, so you can see that frame and jig that's there. And here's a lot of the components going on, is pulling it together. All of the balusters on. Okay, so this is actually a roof section right here. So all the roofs were pre-constructed off to the side. It took almost the full week. They're extremely detailed, architecturally detailed roofs that were made, 4 of them off to the side. On Saturday morning, I hope there's a picture of that in here, the crane pulled them all in, and it's just amazing finish to that. So we've got, here's just more of the construction coming together. Some of our volunteers taking a break. And there you can see that's the old Libby Ball shade that we had before the new ones that are up now. So it came in very handy in those really hot days. And a couple of our volunteers. Ray was there throughout the whole week, is a great fella. And I'm forgetting the guy's name to the right. But it was really an amazing event with all these people working together every day from the community, talking and getting to know each other and hanging out at the meals and things together. Terrific. So you can see it coming along better. There's a 4-inch layer of gravel. I think that was 200 tons of gravel. So that was all hauled in by wheelbarrow, and we used quite a bit of the Bobcat too, but we had to spread it all by hand. And then you can see the nighttime. We had generators with lights out there. A lot of donations from Greg's Rents for some of the equipment out there. And then you can see that was the morning we lowered the roofs in, which really is there was a lot of detail in those roofs. They're really terrific looking. And see the roofs getting dropped on. And then you can see it really having a lot of pizzazz when those roofs come in. And I think that guy on the right is our maintenance super, Ruben's brother, George. I think he strong-armed him. He was great. He came for several days. This looks like the recreation manager doing a safety test on the so. And then the final product, I mean, right now we are 96% or so, I think we just went up to. We're going at it right now. Just left the volunteers are over there working right now. We've got the Eagle Scouts building 2 trellised redwood bench areas, and they're doing a great job on that. That's the Eagle project for one of the boys in the valley here. And a couple other people are finishing the sandbox off. And we just finished all the curbing in today. So there's a few details we're working on. We're working on the turf hill. The soil's gone in for that today, and we're working with one of the councilmen to help us put AstroTurf on that. We appreciate that, Mr. Henney, Councilman Henney. And so everything's coming together, and I think we're going to make it for the grand opening this Saturday at 10:30. The mayor will cut the ribbon and let the little ones tear it up. So.
Great, thank you, Greg. It was definitely a community effort to put all this together, and it was amazing to see the short time that I was there, how dedicated all these volunteers were, and a pleasure to work with all of them, work with the maintenance staff all the way to volunteers to kids 15 years of age just shoveling mulch. It was absolutely amazing, Greg. So I appreciate everything you've done too. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then with that, I am going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Blatz.
As many of you know, I belong to the Rotary Club of Ojai West, and we had a project for several years where we were going to be providing a new sunshade for the old playground, and we found out the new playground was going to be installed. We wanted to provide a sunshade to that as well, but as it turned out, the design really didn't lend itself, nor did we need to have the sunshade. So the Rotary Club of Ojai West had already put aside $15,625 for the sunshade. And on behalf of the Rotary Club, we have decided that we wanted to dedicate it and donate it to the new playground equipment. So on behalf of our president, Bill Schaus, and the other 54 members of the Ojai Rotary West, I've got a check that I'm going to present to our mayor in the amount of $15,625 from the Ojai Rotary West.
I want to know who to give it to. I don't want to get in trouble. That's well, thank you very kind of.
I will pass on the thanks to the club.
I should mention that there's huge shade fabrics that go up there, and there was a little confusion about exactly when it would arrive. We thought it'd be this week, but they said, no, we need to get a confirmation on the exact distance between those heavy-duty poles out there. So once they get that, then it's about 2-3 weeks out. So the fabric's not up there, but it will be, we promise, very soon.
Great, thank you. Thanks again. And I do want to encourage everybody to go and look at it. I'm just dreading it as a parent to hearing those words. Do we have to go now?
Greg, before you go, how's the fundraising coming? Is there still some money that's, as I know how generous everybody's been, but are they still selling the
Yeah.
bricks and things like that?
I appreciate that, yes. There's still, anybody who's interested will have a path that goes from the fountain area when you walk in, and it kind of is a quick weave right by the redwood trellis bench there. So there's 4x8 bricks that are available as a sponsor, and it would be $250 per 4x8 brick. And we have a sheet that can be filled out, and it's, I think, up to 3 lines, 20 characters each, so anything you'd like to put on there, dedicate it. They also have an 8x8 brick, which is $500 each. And then anybody who's thinking bigger, we've got equipment that you can actually sponsor, each one individually. We've had quite a few pieces sponsored. Out of the 40,000 we're trying to raise, I haven't seen the final number, but I think we're up at about 30,000 plus right now. And so
Okay.
money's still coming in. We appreciate anybody who would like to still donate.
Okay, thank you. And where would people go to if they wanted to purchase one of those bricks?
And I think they go to Rotary West for the bricks, and then they can contact the Ojai Rec Department has the all of the other equipment that can be purchased.
Okay.
Or we're all very glad to accept phone calls to get back to you on that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? With that, thank you, Mr. Grant. I'm going to move into the public communication. Is a time set aside during the meeting for members of the public to address the city council successor agency board on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matter raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the council board and will generally be referred to the staff and or placed on the subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than the emergency items, no action can be taken. Persons wishing to address the council board are requested to fill out a speaker's card prior to the council board reaching this point of the agenda. Comments must be limited to 3 minutes or less. Our first public comment is Chief Plott.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council, Norm Plott, Division Chief for the Ventura County Fire Department. Just a couple of quick notes since we spoke last. Over this last summer, both of the Ojai Valley engines were involved in supporting the folks on the Butte Fire up in Calaveras County, and then also the Rough Fire, particularly around the Hume Lake area. If anybody's been up there, they were involved in prepping that area for the fire to go through there. So the Valley engine, Ojai's engine, was very involved in the fire siege up in Northern California. Just want to give you that report. Second of all is now that we're still dealing with the effects of the drought, but we're starting to lean forward into the El Nino planning. I just want to let the council know that this Thursday there'll be a town hall meeting at 6 o'clock at the Oakview Community Center, and there'll be members from County OES, the fire department. We'll have Eric Bolt from the National Weather Service. We'll have geologists from the county. Evacuation warning closures, Ventura County Sheriff's Department will be there talking about those issues. Emergency preparedness from the Red Cross, animal preparedness, and question and answers session. So folks, if they have any questions about El Nino, they'll have all the players in one spot. So I encourage anybody that had any questions about that and what the predictions are. Of course, it is weather, so it's unpredictable, but there's some good science involved with what the potentials are for this event. So that'll be this Thursday from 6 to 8 at the Oakview Community Center.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Mr. Miley?
Good evening. My name is Bill Miley. We live on North Signal Street, and my family has lived in Ojai a long time. So tonight I am representing our Ojai Affordable Housing Committee. I want to update you and folks who are watching the council meeting on our efforts at creating reasonably priced housing for lower income families to ease our current housing crisis. Since the City Council passed the housing elements 4 and 5, which are part of our city's legal general plan, we have been working on how best to do this, consistent with Ojai's character. As you well know, your council affirmed on July 14th of this year that 2 city-owned parcels, special overlay sites 10 and 11 from the housing element plan, are available for affordable housing. Your council also asked People's Self-Help Housing, a nonprofit corporation, for a concept presentation for both parcels for rental apartment development. Started in 1970, People's Self-Help Housing is a trusted nonprofit corporation with an excellent reputation, which would build a development of about 40 units of rental housing. These apartments would be offered to low-income families who live and or work in our city. We know the need is large, and there are many qualifying people in the town that will make application for it. People's Self-Help will provide on-site management with many social and educational services provided to the residents. In order to pay for this affordable housing development, 100% financing is needed. To do this, People's Self-Help will apply for highly competitive tax credits from the state of California. To win these credits, the development must meet two key state criteria. First, the city must offer funding and or a land donation. And 2, the land must be very close to the downtown where many of the services are available. There are only 2 land parcels in our housing element that meet these criteria. One, a portion of Site 10 behind City Hall, and 2, Site 11, next to the Public Works Yard. Importantly, Site 10's grant deed carries a deed covenant which limits the use of the land to public purposes. And, importantly, affordable housing is a legitimate public purpose as defined both by our general plan and the state of California statutes. So in closing, I'm going to end with a rhetorical question. Do we, council and the people in Ojai, want to take advantage of these special overlay sites in order to bring affordable housing to this city? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pendry?
Thank you, Mayor Laura. Council members, Deborah Pendry, 309 Riverside Road, representing the Ojai Valley Green Coalition. And as I've shared a few times, the coalition started a salon series this year to give community members a place to get out of the head and into the heart, to help us remember why, as activists, we do what we do, and to inspire and nourish each other. Our theme for our final and 8th salon of 2015 is dirt. We meet this Friday, October 16th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Coalition Resource Center, 206 North Signal Street, Suite S. In this salon, we ask the question, what is dirt? And what is our relationship with it? We walk on it, wash it off, rely on it for our food, fear it when it slides, use it in makeup, build homes with it, and use it as an insult to others. We abuse it, poison it, disregard it, plow it, and then let it blow away. In the end, we all return to it. How often do we stop and consider this, the skin of the earth, and our most humble of resources? Come share the role, seen or unseen, that dirt plays in your life. In other words, what's the dirt on dirt in your life? And just to share, our 2015 Salon Series has been sponsored by the Nutiva Foundation, which we greatly appreciate. And then to add, the next day, which is Saturday, Ojai Day, October 17th, a reminder, if you ride your bike to Ojai Day, the coalition is hosting a free bike valet on Ojai Avenue and the corner of Ventura Street. What makes this great is, along with keeping an eye on your bike, you can leave your helmet and other belongings and not have to schlep them around for the day. We will also have an information booth promoting our In Pursuit of Zero Waste educational events coming up. And right next to us, our friends at the Sustainable Transport Club will be showcasing electric vehicles. Also across the way, the Mob Shop with the Ojai Police and the Complete Streets Committee are offering a safety bike rodeo, free bike tune-ups, and free kids helmets while supplies last, and I believe that's funded by the Rotary Club of Ojai. Betsy, you're a bike rider. What do we call a bicyclist who doesn't wear a helmet?
An organ donor?
That's it. Spread the word. Bicyclists follow the same rules as motorists, and let's willingly and happily share the road. I'll leave you with two quotes. The bicycle is the noblest invention of mankind, and whoever invented the bicycle deserves the thanks of humanity. Thanks.
Mr. and Mrs. Thornhill? If you could please set the timer for 6 on this one.
Good evening. Alan and I are here to speak on a particular issue. This is Alan Thornhill, and I'm his wife, Denise. We live at 311 North Ventura Street at the corner of Oak Street and Ventura Street, the rock house behind the hedge. We received last Friday a letter in regards to code enforcement for hedge height violation at 311 North Ventura Street. We had heard a little bit about this issue in the paper, and we know one other gentleman down Oak Street who received a letter about a month ago. We were hoping our corner would not apply, but sure enough, we got our letter. And I have to say, it took us aback a bit. We were a little upset about this. First of all, it's addressed to Alan Thornhill or current resident. It's like, it comes from the City of Ojai, the Community Development Department, from William Cornell. And it seems like it's rather impersonal to start off with. It doesn't mention my name at all. And basically says we're in violation of an ordinance that we really haven't been aware of until somewhat recently, and not fully aware of it. And I believe it's been on the books for some time. And basically saying if we're not in compliance by October 29th at 5 p.m., that there'll be additional actions taken, possibly administrative fines. And it's signed by someone we never heard of before. And there's also a photo that was enclosed with the letter that shows the corner of the property. You can see the rear view mirror of the car that he must have been driving. He could have at least come to our door and talked about this and been a little more personable, but this came across as very impersonal, very accusatory, and how dare we be in violation of an ordinance that has been on the books for a while, I believe, and all of a sudden has become a priority. Alan, I think we'll talk about what the ordinance requires, just so people have a basic understanding as to what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, basically, we're being ordered to cut our 80-year-old hedges down to 3 feet. We live in a house that's
Historic sites of merit.
that has a historical site merit designation. And when I was a kid, and a lot of other people I know too, we all wanted to see this coolest little house in the world that was behind these hedges, and it has been since our grandparents were here. And lo and behold, by the grace of God, we live in that house, and it's a jewel, a toadstool of a beauty beautiful gem in the middle of our community here that Denise can tell you how much wildlife we have living on that corner right there. And like she said, all of a sudden, somebody come by and did a drive-by photo of our place and sent a very impersonal letter to Allen Thornhill or current residents and telling us we have until the end of October to cut these 80-year-old hedges down to 3 feet or be subject to such and such action. We're ordered to cut the hedges down from the corner. We live on the corner, so 25 feet back this way from the corner, 25 feet back this way from the corner, mow everything down to 3 feet. And we have a small property. That in itself aesthetically would just completely change the whole beauty of the whole thing. And we got this letter just a few days ago, and I've lost a bit of sleep over it. And we walk around the neighborhood a lot, and just in walking around the neighborhood in the last few days, all the properties that we have seen that will fall under this ordinance, and if they were all to be compliant to this ordinance, would change the look of our whole community here in a way that I don't think any of us want. It's ludicrous, and I don't know what it's going to take to continue this further, but I plan to refuse this, and I'm making a statement today that I want the town to know and the city council to know that we are saying no to this. And
Mr. Mayor?
Well, just a minute, I just want to make sure I give you your time allocated. Are you guys finished with your public comment?
Probably. There's probably a lot more we could say, but I don't want to stick
Well,
my foot in my
because
mouth
we
either.
have 2 questions right now, so what we usually do for public comment, since the item is not on the agenda, legally, we cannot discuss it.
I do understand that.
We could
Our
briefly
intention-
make comments and possibly brief comments and possibly direct staff in those brief comments to come back with something, but we can't discuss it. So I just want to make sure that that you're done with your
Yes.
segment, because then we're going to ask you to sit down and we'll ask the questions real quick.
All right.
So I'm going to ask Councilmember Clapp first, and then Councilmember Wyrick, since I saw. Oh, you didn't have? Oh, I thought I saw your.
I just want to go on record that I've been opposed to this from the very beginning. I think that it's been stimulated by one individual in town, and it's to the detriment of our community. I feel it is going to alter our community unalterably. There's a need for this kind of privacy on these narrow lots close to the front of the street. And I think it's a real shame that this has happened around walls and hedges and trees, et cetera. And I personally wanted to bring it back before City Council for further discussion, because I think this is a really bad policy that's being executed and ill thought out. And I apologize that this has happened to you, and I know it's happened to others. And I, again, want to state openly that I've been opposed to this from the beginning, and I would like to see the rest of council willing to have this open for another discussion.
And just so that you're aware of what the current direction is from the majority of the council, is to enforce that ordinance only where there's safety issues, like on corner lots. Because we're afraid that there might be an accident, somebody. So that's there's no dialogue here. I just want to make sure that you understand that the whole ordinance is not being enforced.
And Mr. Mayor, one more brief comment, because I know it needs to be brief. I would like, if this does come back for discussion, I want a police report about every accident that has occurred on every corner where they have claimed that this is a safety hazard for the last 10 years in this community, because I want to know that it's truly, indeed, there's proof that there have been accidents at these corners, rather than the anticipation and paranoia that these accidents are going to occur.
And my initial one of my initial reactions is that if this is truly enforced, I think we're making it easier for people to be careless with their driving and with their walking.
We should be slow.
And we live at a 4-way stop as it is. And if you are careful, there's no obstruction at our corner. And the way the letter states it is potentially hazardous situation, since when? We've been there since 1998. We're not aware of that. And if you would just visualize what our corners are going to look like, if you're talking about 25 feet down to 3 feet, the aesthetics, the privacy, the landscape and habitat value of that vegetation, what it provides in our urban landscape, that means a lot to us who live in the city.
Okay.
We value our yard. We
Thank
really
you.
do. We love it. And
Thank
we
you.
So I
do take care of it.
I again extend the invitation to the rest of council to put this on a future agenda.
I'll second that, just as a discussion item to clarify again what our purpose was previously and what we want to potentially do.
And with a full report on how many accidents have occurred on every corner, we've required the hedges to be trimmed for 10 years.
Okay.
Mr.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz?
Thank you,
guys.
If we're going to bring back the
Thank
issue
you.
of hedges, I think we need to bring back the issue of walls and fences as well.
All
Yeah.
of it, I agree.
All right. Thank you. Sue Williams?
Thank you very much.
Ms. Williams?
Sue Williams' son. And I, yeah, thank you. Okay, I live at 47 Taramina, and I am here because I have some questions about a recent raid that was done on the local co-op of the medical marijuana group here in town. I would like to know, and I'm not sure if you're going to have anybody here to answer these questions from the law enforcement, but I would like to know whether there was any attempt by the law enforcement to find out whether or not the communal inventory held by Mr. Kroll was in state guidelines compliance. Because as I understand it, they raided a co-op that is totally legal, that has attempted to follow all the state guidelines, all the rules, all the regulations. They took my medical files, as well as 700 other people's medical files, which is a violation of our HIPAA rights, as well as it's a private co-op. They had no right to take private information. I'm really upset about this. I think it's a terrible violation, especially when you're looking at the fact that the governor has just signed 3 bills. The feds have just said they're not going to enforce this. I want to know what in the world was happening with our county sheriff's department that they would raid legal and destroy. They destroyed 5 years of research of all the product that has been meticulously documented and tested for people who have serious illnesses and people who need this medication, and it's far better. By the way, for anybody watching on TV, I would highly recommend it instead of taking the poison that the pharmaceutical corporations are giving you and charging you a fortune for. Medical marijuana solves many problems. I am absolutely furious that this has happened, and I think the city council needs to find out what in the world were these people doing? What was the county doing by raiding a legal endeavor like this and harming all the people that they have harmed?
Okay. I am gonna,
Chair Laura, I have a suggestion.
yeah, well, let's, I do want to point out that we do have a number of items, some that have identified this topic, so I'm gonna I was gonna
I was
have.
thinking to have all the
Chief-
people that wish to speak on that come forward, and then afford Captain Kenny a chance to respond.
Okay, do you have a preference of answering right now or hearing all the comments
I can make
first?
my comment now, but I don't think it's going to answer a lot of their questions. I found out about the operation on Wednesday when I returned from my vacation, and I called down to try to see if I can get some answers, but I'm quite limited. This didn't occur out of Ojai PD. It occurred on October 6th. Detectives from narcotics did serve a search warrant, which was signed by a judge at Shangri-La, and that the warrant involved the illegal sale of marijuana. And this is an ongoing investigation, and that's all I can really tell you folks.
Okay. All right. Kenny Dolly? Could you correct my
Yeah,
pronunciation?
Dolly, that's
Dolly,
correct.
okay.
My name is Kenny Dolly. I live here in Ojai. I have cancer, third stage cancer. I was diagnosed, along with my wife, we were diagnosed within 3 weeks of each other about 5 years ago with third stage cancer. And at some point along the line, I met Jeff Kroll and found out about the Shangri-La Cooperative. And at that time, I had a PSA test and a rating when I was diagnosed of about 7.5, which is high enough to call it third stage. And there's 4 stages, by the way. 7.5, it went to about 9, and at the time that I met Jeff Kroll and became associated with the Shangri-La Cooperative, my PSA was around 17. And he introduced me to some products that were derivative of marijuana and cannabis, and I began to take non-psychoactive, in other words, drugs that don't make you high, but they are derived from hemp or marijuana. You can get them from both. And I began to take a measured dose of these CBDs, they call them. And within a month or a month and a half, my PSA rating had dropped to 0.17. So I was expecting that, and the rumor was that we were going to hear from the Sheriff's Department, and I was hoping that we would hear from someone who knew why and what the motivation was, what spurred this raid, where I understand they took thousands of dollars worth of very precious and carefully cultivated product and mixed it all together in such a way that it doesn't, it becomes unidentifiable and obviously damaging to the product. And I wanted to know why on earth this happened. And I see we can't tell why it happened because, of course, Mr. Kenny has only arrived after the fact, to a certain extent. It can't really tell us much about it. So if there's anything that can be done, I think a serious investigation should happen to find out why on earth this happened, because it's affecting a lot of people's lives, and it's a shame. It's a real shame. And the people that were motivated to do it, to make this raid, they should be ashamed.
Thanks. Thank you. Deborah Moe. Deborah Moe. Oh.
Deborah Moe, Ojai. How is everybody? Okay. I'm here with a concern regarding the bus bench in the park and ride at Chaparral. I've witnessed so many times moms and their kids going to catch the bus and can't wait for the bus where it is set up for, because our local vagrants have taken it over. I've pulled up at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're drinking beer. They're having a good old time, and these moms and their kids are standing way over. They're afraid, and I just wanted to bring this up to say why. I mean, a lot of people know this is going on, and why is it being allowed? on another note, I am wondering how we're ending the year is coming to an end. How is our agenda? There's lots of things on the agenda that has not been dealt with or finalized. They come up, they get discussion, they kind of, our good old vacation rentals, that's one. The granny flat, I can't think of the second.
Is it second unit or non-compliant second unit?
There you are. Well, maybe both.
Well, the non-compliant second unit has been implemented.
Okay.
It has it.
I don't come to the city council all the time. I'm a very avid television watcher, though I watch every meeting, and I'm also wondering about the finalization of the Golden State Water being turned over to Casitas. How's that going? I was at a meeting the other day at Chaparral regarding the pesticide spraying for the citrus trees, and it wasn't very well attended because it wasn't advertised very well. Also, I think, in my opinion, and quite a few others, I think it would have been set up better if there was a question and answer time. I'm not telling anybody how to run their meeting, but hey, no. The public, and we voted for you guys, and I think I voted for every one of you, and we want to help. We want to help move some of these things along, But my concern is that bus bench. It's gnarly for moms and kids, so.
I'd like to
you, Mo.
interject something real quick, if I may.
Yes.
Responding to the vacation rental ordinance.
Right.
The focus group has had its final meeting. There is a draft, a report that's coming out the first meeting in November. So we'll be giving a full report, what the conclusions were in the focus group. And it's also, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Clark, has that report been posted online?
The report from the July 2nd meeting?
The report that Mr. Wyrick gave us at the
I
last
think
meeting?
so. I'll have to confirm that, but I think it has.
There's two reports, one from Mr. Wyrick and one from myself, that have been posted online on the city website, so you can read ahead of time before the November meeting what the report from the focus group is. So that might give you
Some insight.
into what's going on. And again, it's going to be the first meeting in November. We'll be bringing the report forward, giving an opportunity for people to come forward and ask their questions. And hopefully, from that point, Councilman Ryrick and I are determined to move this forward quickly because we understand it's becoming a critical issue.
Thank you. And then I've noted your concerns, and we'll get back to you, see what we could do. Thank you, Mo. Sharon Hall.
Hello, my name is Sharon Hall. My residence right now is in Summerland, but I also am responsible for a house in Miners Oaks. The raid happened 10 minutes after I had joined the co-op. My question is strictly around HIPAA. And the question is, what assurance can anyone give us, those of us who had our personal information confiscated, that all of that personal material will not be used against us, that we are protected? My doctor is the one who took me on the path for this because I can't handle opiates. I want to make sure, as I was assured at every step along the way, that I was protected by HIPAA, that the laws that governed my confidentiality around medical marijuana were unimpeachable. So here's my question. What's going on with that? 700 people's personal identity was taken. Thinking class action suit, I don't know. Thank you.
I have a quick question for our city attorney.
Councilmember Clapp has a question.
I have a question for our city attorney and maybe Captain Kinney. This is obviously a very upsetting issue. My question is, what authority does city council have in this matter?
Very little, in fact, none.
Right, so,
The city council has some moral authority to request that the county sheriff's department look at what priorities it uses in its investigation process, but in terms of hard authority, there is none.
thank you.
Councilmember Wyrick.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from everybody on this matter, and then I might have some comments during my council member report
I
on this.
concur. Barbara Snyder.
I'm Barbara Snyder. I've lived here for 33 years. And I want to talk about the development behind the City Hall. The Ojai Valley News on October 9th published a thumbs down item which states, and I quote, "A reader sends a thumbs down to those who think the demonstration garden is so precious while letting it dilapidate. Isn't that just code for NIMBY, keeping affordable housing and poor people out of Ojai?" Unquote. NIMBY, of course, meaning not in my backyard. I was surprised to see this appear in the Ojai Valley News, and I'm hoping that no member of this city council believed what this anonymous writer had to say. Surely the writer was not in the last city council meeting, where for over an hour concerned citizens of Ojai eloquently spoke regarding the proposal now being investigated by city staff to give away land which was donated to the city for the land to be forever public land, enjoyed by all of the citizens of Ojai and the Valley. I'm here to remind you that not one single speaker indicated that he or she was in favor of, quote, keeping affordable housing and poor people out of Ojai, unquote. Not one person spoke against affordable housing. Each was concerned with one or more aspects of the projects he or she believed not to be the right course for the city to take. I believe that most people, myself included, in Ojai, are in favor of affordable housing units, just not in the public park. And let me add, I would really like to see published a map. I have a degree in geography. I have looked at your map. It is illegible. You cannot see where 17, 18, 10, I mean, it's a terrible map. And I would really like to see a decent map of all the proposed sites which might be down the road for affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if you don't mind giving your contact information, Mr. or Ms. Besore, and we could provide you with the map.
Oh, that would be great.
Is it D. Pierce?
Hi, my name's Doc Pierce. I've lived in Ojai for 20 years. I'm a member of the Shangri-La Care Cooperative. That came about when after a heart attack, massive heart attack 4 years ago, my cardiologist recommended that I use cannabis. So I did, and thank you, Dr. Bariliani, for that recommendation. It's helped me immensely, but more importantly, I have a very good friend who can't be here tonight, who is in stage 3A cancer, who has relied on Shangri-La to supply her with CBD's oil that was talked about here earlier by this gentleman. And she's been writing to me frantically on the email, "Oh no one's answering the phone, what should I do?" Well, apparently this stuff helps her get through chemotherapy so well that she became to rely on it. She doesn't like getting high. That wasn't the point. Anyway, so here, I came here tonight because I had heard that the Sheriff's Department in Ventura would send somebody who could answer some questions for us. Obviously, they sent somebody who can't answer any questions for us. That's a shame. We'd like to know some of the basic things. He did say that a warrant was signed, but as far as I know, no warrant was ever presented when this raid happened at 2 different places in Ojai. So my question is, who authorized this? Who initiated this? Why did this even come about? Like was said here before, this is affecting medically disabled people in this town. You might note that the bulk of the membership at Shangri-La is basically a bunch of old folks like myself. There aren't any teenagers. There aren't any very young people. The point isn't to get high. It's about medical marijuana. I wanted to ask questions. Obviously, I'm not going to get any because the police copped out. I guess that's a pun. That's really regretful. And that's all I have to say since I can't ask any questions.
Thank you. Carol Pierce.
Hello, my name is Carol Pierce. I am Doc Pierce's wife, and I've lived in Ojai for over 20 years. Again, I'm very disappointed that we can't really ask any questions about this raid that occurred recently to Shangri-La Care Cooperative. And we know that organization has been operating within the law. In any case, I do want to ask Chief Kennedy, in the 6 years that Shangri-La Care Cooperative has been going on, have you ever received any complaints or had any issues with Shangri-La Care Cooperative?
And Chief Kenny, if you...
Not to my knowledge, I would have to do a call search or something of that nature, but nothing that comes to mind.
Okay. I'm curious about that because that would tell us that if there weren't any issues, it begs the question, why did this happen? I'm just very disappointed too, and I would like to know, is it possible for us to get some answers, and from who and when?
And
I
again,
can't speak to the case. I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait till it makes its way through courts, and hopefully you'll get your answers then, and hopefully that's sooner than later. But being it's an ongoing investigation, I can't comment on the merits of it, and quite frankly, I don't know what they are because I don't know anything about the case.
Okay.
I wish I could answer something for you, but I can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael McFall? McPhail? I never say your last name. I always say your first.
Long time no see. I have a very simple question directed to Chief Kennedy. I'm just curious about policy regarding search warrants in general. I mean, is it not true that it's a federal requirement that a search warrant must be issued and presented upon a raid of the sort that went on with Mr. Kroll's property?
And I want to make sure that we do want to be sensitive to everybody's questions. I just don't want to create this Q&A of there's other avenues. I'm just trying to get through the agenda, and I know this is a very sensitive issue, and I'm sure that council members will have different comments later on. But again, if Chief Kenny is willing to answer those questions through email or through other way, or unless you want to answer them right now, I want to give you that.
I don't know if it was shown or not. Okay, you guys are being told one thing. I don't know what the sheriff's department's going to say. So I don't know if the warrant was shown, and I don't know if it's required to be shown. Maybe you can answer that. So, yeah.
Well, I guess that's the question I had was, is it required by federal law to be shown?
Yeah.
There are types of warrants. There are traditional warrants and what are called no-knock warrants, which do not need to be presented. That's the classic raid. I, again, have no information on this case and have no information on this warrant, but there are two types of warrants, so it's possible. Again, the sheriff has indicated that he doesn't have the information on this case. The sheriff's department does have a public information office, which may be able to provide more information.
And, and another way we could do this too is I could record the questions at the end of the public comment if you have the ability to, or you want to answer them, if you can. Is that?
Well, I'm certainly writing them down.
Yeah.
I would appreciate everyone, if they have questions, posing them so we can note them.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have something to say during my report period.
Okay. All right.
Well, I have one more thing. Within the city of Ojai, is it legal for the sheriff of Ventura to issue a search warrant without your knowledge, for example?
Yes, I am a sheriff's deputy as well, so, yeah, that's my department.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve Weed?
I make the necessary vertical adjustment here. It's good to see you all. My name is Steve Weed. No, I'm not talking about the raid, okay? I spoke with some of you earlier, and the reason I'm here is to talk about the Ojai vision process. Before I do that, I want to say congratulations to everyone on the council and the various committees who had a role in the Libby Park creation. Not only was it a lot of hard work for, people like Randy and people in the Parks Department, but also, the people that actually went out and participated in that. And it was a win-win financially and also community building. And so, hey, let's dream up some more projects like that. It's good stuff. I want to thank you at this point for the interest that some of you have shown in the Ojai Vision Project. And I have to tell you that I don't agree with my son. See, my oldest son asked me after I came home from a council meeting once, why do I go to these things? And I said, that's how things get done. People talk about it and they make plans. And he looks at me and he says, Daddy, all they do is talk. Well, I don't agree with him because I've seen you shown some interest in this. And I just want to commend you for that. But, the vision process has a lot of benefits for the council. It can take some of the comments that you hear so often in the council and social media and on the street and consolidate them so that you have a document to use as a guideline for how to proceed with the decisions that happen. Another one of the things that's very important is that if you get people in the room with differing opinions, hopefully they start to understand that the issues of Ojai are not simple, and what one person thinks is not necessarily what they think, and it helps to increase that dialogue. And as you well know, people come here and represent their own points of view, but we need to be able to share that and develop a common vision that most of us can say, yeah, I can live with that. Not that I'm terribly excited about it, but that I can live with it. The next one and the final one that I'm planning on at this point is October 22nd, 6 o'clock at the Bryant Circle office space, 407C. For those of you watching on television, or if you don't know my email address, I'm going to give it to you. It's very simple. You can write me with information about that. It's simply Stephen, that's STEPHEN, WEED, 2011 at Gmail. Okay? There's a Facebook forum that has the information there as well. But, what I'd like to say is that I think that the council and the staff has recognized the need for visioning. As I sent an email to you last week, there was a recommendation by Mr. Clark to actually increase the visioning budget to $20,000 this year. And I'm not sure that anything ever happened with that. But what I'm looking at here from your perspective, is that you have an opportunity to get condensed public opinion for free. And what I'd like is simply a response that you will consider this at some city council meeting. And again, I think I can scrape together enough to do some promotional work for it from the people that are interested in this project. But if I write these reports and you get them and they sit on your desk, it's spitting into the wind. Because it's unfair, in my opinion, to raise expectations of the public that our city council and our other officials are willing to consider their opinion in a condensed form, and then to not have the city council take action on that.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Reed.
October 22nd is my last event, and I would appreciate a response and actually see it on the agenda so that you discuss this, about what you would do with the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Moyers.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I'm Karen Moyers. I live in the city of Ojai. I am a part of Shangri-La as well, and I have been sick since I was 11 years old. I have gotten my prescription at the age of 19, where medical marijuana helped me from going to the ER a couple times a week, sometimes twice a day, to now once, maybe twice every few months. So my one main question is to the attorney, is there anyone you can point us to help us find out who can help us in regards to finding information of why this happened and our medical records are now out there or somewhere? I would just like to know if you could at least point us into some direction of that. Or someone.
Yeah, and again, we're going to note your questions, and we will respond at the end of this public comment if there's to those questions. So,
Okay.
do you have any other?
That was basically it. I just
Okay.
would like to know about our medical information and why, for the most part, this has happened.
Okay, great.
I can make
Thank
one
you.
quick comment, is that our press information officer's name is Captain John Riley, and I would suggest contacting him, and he would be the voice of the sheriff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Captain John Riley?
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Michael Lopez?
Hello, council members. It's been a while since I've been here. My name is Michael Lopez. I'm a 52-year resident of the Ojai Valley. I'm here to speak tonight to share an incident involving the lower tennis courts where I play at least 5 times to 6 times a week. Back in late May, a group of young men started coming to the lower courts and using them for an indoor soccer court. People playing tennis were tolerable, but it came to a point where the group grew to in the 30s to 40s at times, and they were very not as much polite as you'd say they should be. And we asked them very nicely to please be more careful with the balls when they're kicking them high up in the air and they're become flying projectiles. A certain incident which was very serious was we have a wonderful, wonderful group of women here in the valley, ranging from the ages of the 20s up into their 60s and 70s, who play USTA leagues. They play mixed leagues, they play women's leagues. And at that time, their women's league was in play, and so they practiced in the evenings on the lower courts. So this one incident on one of the courts, the group of the men playing soccer kicked the ball. It came flying from one court to the other one. It was at least 35 feet in the air. When it was coming down, it just missed hitting the woman in the back of the head. If it would have hit her, it probably would have injured her or maybe crippled her. I made it I went to Mr. Grant, and he was nice enough to facilitate a meeting with the sheriffs and I believe city management. They met and they came out and they enforced that the court's only to be used for tennis. They're not to be used for anything other anything foreign to the game of tennis. So it's been great. It's been really beautiful since then. But there was a hiccup last Tuesday night. The group of about 30 of them showed up again, and Mr. Lara was there. And so I'd like to know what you were doing there, and if you were a part of it, and if you were aware of the meeting before, back in late May.
I was there. I'm going to answer your question. I was there because they requested to meet with me on the issue on playing indoor soccer. So I advised them what the direction of the city was and the policies, and we've, as this issue is going to go to Park and Recreation Commission. So I did three things. I told them what the direction of the city was on this approach, and they clearly understood that it was their risk that if they kept playing on those tennis courts, that they could be cited.
Or arrested.
Or arrested.
Right.
Second thing that because after talking to management, second thing I advised them was that I was hoping that they would keep an open mind on this issue, because I look at this as an opportunity of young adults wanting to play indoor soccer. So I think that it's important for the city to possibly look at options where they could play. And I'm for that. This is an opportunity, just like the bike issue was the skate park. The third thing that I told them, that it would only be fair that we advise the tennis community to participate on this conversation, because just the importance of tennis. But I do want to note that there is some enforcement issues, some policy issues that's very gray in this area that we're looking into. It does not prohibit any other activity on those tennis courts, any other sports, and it doesn't specify only tennis
I
sport.
disagree with you,
And we've
Mayor.
looked at all the issues. We're going to post it on public, and I can refer you to
There
those
is a sign
ordinance.
posted at the, on the
And-
bathrooms.
and I'm not-
It says it
yeah.
has the rules.
It does have the
It says
rules.
no other activity foreign to the game of tennis is to be played on the courts.
Well, I'm
If you'd like
not-
to walk
yeah.
down and read the sign, it's
I've-
right there, right now.
I've talked to staff about it. We've identified it. There's a inconsistency in there. I'm not gonna, I don't want to, again, we're not
Okay, can I cut
creating
you
a
off?
conflict.
I would like to finish thanking the Sheriff's Department. They came down tonight, and they made a walkthrough, and they were very polite, and we thanked them very much for being there. So thank you once again,
Yeah.
the Sheriff's Department.
And I do-
don't
I-
really thank you,
Uh-huh.
because from my perspective, you should have asked them to leave. That's my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you very much.
And I do appreciate your comments about there being a safety concern, that we do want to address this, but we want to make sure we do this. And again, it's going to be brought up, Park and Recreation Commission, and there'll be a process of discussion that we'll invite the whole public to. So I see this as an opportunity to encourage recreation. Dr. Howard Rodding? Rodding?
I'm here also briefly on the tennis issue,
Mhm.
representing all the players, and Rick Thompson, who's the tennis director for 28 years down there, and point out that it's more than a safety issue. It's very disruptive to tennis to have 40 people playing soccer on the court next to you. It's also not correct to do that to the nets and ruin the equipment that's out there. It's unfair to Rick, who's giving lessons. There's a safety issue. He very kindly has asked them not to play, and they just blow right by him and do what they want to do. And I think the other issue that really needs to be firmly taken in mind is it's disrespectful to the people that spend all the time and money in making these courts, including Jack Kramer, Michael Taggart, Mr. and Mrs. Jack and Ruby Morrison, who have put all the time and money into the courts, and you need to give the support to the police department to enforce this problem. You really wouldn't want me here playing basketball while you're trying to do your meeting, and we really don't feel that we need soccer players next to our tennis courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki Cohen?
Hi, I'm Vicki Cohen. I live in Ojai, and I'm here not to talk about bushes. I'm talking about bushes that have been eradicated at Whispering Oaks. I have a business across the street from Whispering Oaks. I've made many friends over the years, and I'm kind of coming here to talk for them because many of them are very afraid to voice their opinions. They're afraid in terms of getting an eviction notice. So far, there's a landscaping plan that has eradicated 20 trees, taken out every bush and every shrub in the place. They're all taken out. Some of them are still in place, but they're cut off at the bottom. 20 trees have been removed. Some of them are protected trees. Some of them are sycamore trees that have been, I guess, removed legally because of probable root damage. The people over there, there's a whole, a large group of people over there from one end to the other. One of the tenants over there wrote something and asked me if I would read it to you tonight. So if you'd bear with me. Dear City Council members, I will take as little time as I can and ask you not to close your ears as this letter is read. I speak for the residents of Whispering Oaks. I'm sorry I must remain anonymous for fear of eviction. We are longtime citizens of Ojai. We are old and we are suffering from shock. We are being subjected to severe change in our living environment, that meaning taking trees, bushes, shrubs, and ground cover out. We're subject to severe change in our environment, and it's change that you apparently and the Planning Commission have approved of. The landscaping project currently in hand will leave us without the little privacy we had, making surveillance of our lives easier for those wishing to engage in such. When completed, the crushed granite ground cover will increase the temperature level and force upon us excessive use of the air conditioning units, then resulting in fuel waste and higher bills. When this project was passed to you, it was a chance to act as our elected representative and consider the validity, impact, and outcomes of the proposed change. We wish that you had asked us for our thoughts and ideas. You perhaps did not consider that among the residents here, even at the low estimate of knowledge, there is over 2,000 years of working life experience and wisdom that could be drawn upon, and among those which are those that know much about planting, growing, and landscaping. We know that in a severe drought, some considerations have to be given for saving water at this site, but the wholesale destruction was quite unnecessary, costly, and traumatic for the land and those of us living there. Well, there's not much more except that we are most aggrieved that they feel as though they have not been served well in this matter, and hope that somehow you will intervene. And what they're asking for right now is, instead of crushed gravel that will be eventually laid on the ground where the cover has been removed, they're asking for wood chips. They're asking for wood chips. They're asking for a softer, pedal environment. So that's about all they have left to ask for, and that's what they're asking for. So I wanted to make that known.
Quick question.
Yeah, Councilmember Wyrick?
I assume the Housing Authority is distributing or making available the landscape plan that was approved by the Planning Commission?
It's in the community room.
And when that came before the Planning Commission for a hearing, which it did, and was approved, did the residents get notice of that public hearing?
I don't think they knew about it until the plan was posted in the community room. Most of them didn't.
I'm talking about before there, in terms of the residents getting notice of the public hearing before the Planning Commission.
I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
Any way we could check on that?
Yeah.
We will check into it. It may be the case that the public hearing notices generally just go to the property owner. They wouldn't pick up all the tenants.
I understand that.
But
common sense would dictate.
And we'll check into what was done on this one.
And I would think that perhaps a concern could be, by the administration, could be forwarded to the Housing Authority on the suggestion just made. I don't think there's any problem with that.
I agree.
In addition to this problem, the same scenario is going to be repeated at the Roth homes on El Roblar low-income homes there, they're planning the same deforestation and removal of bushes.
Well, I'm certainly I'm alerted to this now to make sure that the residents get a notice of hearing.
All
You
right.
know, if that in fact did not happen.
Control on El Robar. We have no control on El Robar.
That's outside of city limits.
Oh, that's outside of city limits, I'm
That's
sorry.
outside of city.
Yeah, it's outside, I'm
That's
sorry.
a county
My
of,
mistake.
that's,
And also, HUD no longer administrates Whispering Oaks. It's been privatized and given over to a management company. So,
Well, I don't think it'd be hard to communicate the concern.
It's still owned by the Housing Authority, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
all right.
Well, thank you.
It's a governmental entity that owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cindy Conberry?
Hi, Cindy Convery, Ojai. I'm here about the hedge trimming, and I wanted to remind everyone about the fence moratorium that happened in March, 6 or 7 months ago. There was a 30-day fence moratorium, and then there was a vote here with the City Council whether to adopt it for another longer length of time, a year or 2 years, I don't remember. But many, many, many residents turned out that night and spoke against it. Nobody wanted their hedges trimmed. Nobody wanted the rock walls to go away. And the City Council responded and voted it down. And you spoke out, Councilman Clapp, you said that you couldn't imagine Ojai not being a rural community. Councilman Blatz, you talked about the walls. And yet 6 months later, the city of Ojai started sending out approximately 10 letters a week, starting on August 1st. This was confirmed by Larry Beam, one of the inspectors, to a recipient of the letter, ordering people to trim their hedges, like Alan Thornhill, who spoke tonight. And I recommend that everybody who cares about hedges watch the September 8th Board of Building Appeals meeting. There is a lengthy discussion about hedge trimming. Comments like they need to be addressed now because between August 1st and February 1st, there's no bird nesting, so we can trim all the hedges without having people come back and use that as an excuse not to do it. There's a comment by Bill Ulrich saying that he's roaming is the word he uses, roaming around Ojai, identifying properties that should have their hedges trimmed. This is a, one-man brigade. And I was in the city office getting a permit in early March, and I heard the chairman of the Board of Building Appeals say, I am going to make it my business to address all the hedges and fences in Ojai that aren't in compliance. I am going to bring them all in compliance. He said that. And he is going around, he's the head of this board, and I think when I express this to people, they say, why? And I say, there is no why. They're just doing it. I don't know what the why is, but I really think the September 8th Building Appeals Board meeting will explain a lot to people who care about hedge trimming. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Anderson, Lee? I can't read the first name.
Lonnie Anderson.
Lonnie.
on behalf of the Care Cooperative that was raided. So I've been listening to the comments, and I'm actually really surprised that the chief of police, who's part of the county sheriff's department, has not heard of this. It's over a week now since this raid, and obviously you can't speak to the particulars. And I wrote down the fact that there's a court matter, and I didn't know that anybody was arrested in this. But I'm a healthcare practitioner, and I've had patients who've been helped by the medical marijuana. And one of the things that I did not know was that all of the medical marijuana was combined into one big vat. This material has been tested to determine the amounts of active ingredients for specific conditions. So it's disheartening to hear that this material has been handled this way. When I came with patients to meet with the Care Cooperative, they have a business license, and the city knows this. They have all of their ducks in a row to care for people who have medical need. All of their material is tested. So to raid them for, I'm guessing because they're doing something illegal with respect to recreational use, I find no evidence of that in terms of recommending this to any patients of mine. And if that's what this issue is, then I'm sure that you'll find that there is no impropriety. What concerns me is, and you've heard patients here tonight talk about their need for their medicinals. And so to deny them of that, these people are on chemotherapy, they're on other treatments that are not working, they're in pain. And if all of this material has been combined into one vat, how are they going to get what they need? This is an organic product, it's fully tested. I urge you to find another care cooperative that meets this standard. This is, and for the council to say that they have no direction over their department heads, I don't know if you all agree with that or not, but I think that this is a business that has a business license in the city. You have a duty to investigate how this came down. And I wonder, was the sheriff's department in contact with any of the directors of the care cooperative? This is something that certainly the city attorney would also know about, I believe. And if not, I'm actually very surprised that these agencies didn't know about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Brandt. And I don't know, you didn't put in the agenda item, so I wasn't sure if it was for public comment or for a specific item. Okay, great. So public comment.
I would rather have my fingernails pulled out than public speak. And I'm a renter, but when I heard about this, it went right to my core. And I wrote something, and then I decided I wasn't going to read it, but I'm going to read it now. So here we go. I'm a 15-year resident here. I heard from Alan about the notice. I just can't even believe it. I'm not a property owner myself, but I'm standing in solidarity with those who are against this absolutely ridiculous law. Ridiculous. There are so many reasons that this is wrong, and I would like to tell you the few that immediately come to mind. Number one, privacy. To some, this is not an issue. They are fine with their drapes being closed or could care less who is driving by in the evening and looking in to see them with the lights on in their homes as they cook dinner. Horrible at this. But I, for one, would much rather live in a little shack surrounded with lush screens and privacy than a mansion with no privacy. Light. With landscaping cut down to 3 feet, that would mean that one must close their drapes to have privacy, making the interior of their home darker. For those sensitive to light, such as I am, this can actually lead to depression. Also, many homes have hedges that protect their homes from the direct sun, helping to cool their home and help energy savings while still allowing the natural light in. 3, the environment. The plants are not only helpful for oxygenating the planet, but many of the hedges are blooming and a major life source for bees, hummingbirds, and other creatures that live with us in the valley. Self-expression. One of the things I most love about Ojai is how unique everyone is. How individuality and artistic and expressions are both celebrated and revered. People that own their own homes should be allowed to express and create whatever natural beauty they have in their minds for their homes, not some ridiculous law that is forced on them from the city. I will bet you that if most folks knew that this type of control was going to be forced upon them, They never would have bought within the city limits to begin with. I know that I wouldn't. And lastly, I would ask the council, when was the last time you drove through beautiful Montecito with their 25-foot hedges? Thank you.
I don't have any more speaker cards on public communication. Is there anybody else willing to, Christine?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Thank you, Mayor Lara. I just have a quick question for the lawyer, really, for Matthew. You mentioned there are two kinds of, I think you called them warrants. One would be the warrant that we're all familiar with that is part of the Constitution of the United States of America. And then you said there's something else, which sounds more like a protocol, no knock. And I'm curious, is this no knock a part of the Patriot Act? Is that what has given the right for the police to go in without a warrant and just knock a door down, which I understand was done, kicked in, and trash a place? Is this part of the Patriot Act? Where did that come from? Because it certainly isn't part of our Constitution to do that. I do believe we are still a democracy.
Yeah. So do you have any other
That's my
questions?
question.
That's your question.
Yeah.
So I will give the public the opportunity, if anybody else wants to
Okay, thank
come
you.
and speak during public comment, then yes. If you could come to the mic and state your name for the record.
I'm Vicki Carlton Byrne. Actually, half of my comments have to do with an agenda item number 6, but the other half have to do with the hedge gate, as I call it.
Well, the hedge gate.
You want me to talk
item
hedge
is
gate
not
first?
Is not on the agenda, so that would fall into this segment.
Right.
Yes.
So, okay, so then I will-
And then if you don't mind waiting until we get to item 6 to make those comments.
Okay, so let me just collect my thoughts here. I wrote this down because I can't really be trusted to speak off the cuff and keep within 3 minutes. So anyway, my second item of concern, aside from agenda item 6, is whether some of these codes need to be enforced at all. Just because we have a law in the books doesn't mean that you have to enforce it. I think any police officer who's ever stopped somebody and given them a warning would, can use their discretion. So let's talk about Hedgegate. I understand from several citizens' postings on social media that the city is sending out numerous letters requiring residents to cut hedges and bushes back to no more than 36 inches high. This is kind of redundant, citing safety concerns in the Ojai Municipal Code. Okay, so tell me, what safety concerns? I'm not aware of any injuries, accidents, or fatalities caused by hedges. I've been living on North Montgomery Street for 22 years. If there are, then I would probably support trimming those that have been directly responsible for an accident. If not, why is this urgent? How's this going to help Ojai? Several of you city council members are in the business of plants. In the middle of an historic drought, why are you requiring us to cut back what little remains of green on our properties and remove what leaf canopy there is to support the plant in tolerating stress? I live at 1217 North Montgomery. It's the second house I've been in on this street. I have a 7-foot hedge in front of my house. It's been well over 36 inches since we moved there in 2001, and as far long as I can remember living on the street. It doesn't obstruct the sidewalk. It's in no way a traffic hazard. It's not completely obscuring my property. It's not a hazard to me, my neighbors, or anyone driving on the street. No matter what the code says, I believe you still have discretion in determining enforcement. Please don't sacrifice that discretion on the altar of, well, if we ask some to do it, everyone needs to do it. I know that all of you care for Ojai or you wouldn't be here. We're all in this together, and I believe we can work cooperatively to have less government interference, not more. So thanks, and sorry for the redundancy. I know it's
Thank you.
been heard.
Dale? And then, could you please state your name for the record?
Dale Hansen. I live in Ojai. Good evening. I just want to speak in favor of all of those that spoke regarding Shangri-La. And I want to say that I think it's the narcotics division. I have nothing against county sheriffs, I know you guys do a great job, and I honor you for that. But I think it's the narcotics division that we need to look at, and we can call the PI officer tomorrow and find out more about that. But I want to just say one thing. If any of you have someone that's dear to you that's struggling with cancer, that needs this medication, and to know that it's been denied, that it's been trashed, that hurts. It's outrageous. And I think that it's something we mustn't let die. We have to look at this. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wanting to speak that has not spoken? If they could come to the mic. So I have one more hand, and then I'm going to close the public comment right after the speaker.
My name is Mary Nelson, and I'm a resident of the city of Ojai. And I'm speaking to the matter of the hedges. I understand then that it's for safety that this is being done. And the first I became aware of it was driving west on Aliso, where those little hedges have been chopped down. And I'm just wondering, I mean, what's safety got to do with that? You're either going straight or you're turning right. And if you're turning right, a hedge on the right isn't going to interfere. I had an accident at that intersection, not because of any hedges, but because of the cars parked all along the curbs. Now, since that time, I noticed that there's a red strip, so cars are not able to park quite as close on signal. But I fail to see how there's a safety issue involved in removing those hedges. Maybe you could explain that to me. Someone?
Right now, I don't think we're in the position to respond. And I'm sure we're going to have some comments at the end of this public comment section. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not on the agenda. We can't get into it. I do want to report that Councilmember Clapp and requested that we put this item on the future agenda, which the majority of the council wants to do. So that will be coming as a whole ordinance to this council in the
So
future.
hopefully they can stop right now running around.
And I do want to just insert that this issue has been an ongoing issue since I've been on council, and I've actually gotten complaints from residents on hedges on corners. So I just want to state that for the record. There is some concern. There has been about 50-50 on both sides. This is an issue that we have to talk about. And so I just want to leave it at that. It will become in the future, in the future agenda, and you will be notified when that comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to close the public comments. I do want to get a consensus from the council to see how we want to proceed with the questions from the public in terms of answering them or getting a response. Do we want to give a verbal report? Do we want to possibly post it on a website? Do we on the Shangri-La issue? I mean, do we have any suggestions,
something
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yeah, I had some comments I want to make on this issue during my council member report.
Okay. Would it be more appropriate to do it right now, or again?
Well, I'd like to speak to my
when-
colleagues before we get to what we want to do on that, is my thought. I mean, others of us might have thoughts, but I thought maybe at the end of council reports, it would be more appropriate, because then we've heard from one another.
Yeah. And I do want to turn back to our city attorney, because I don't want to violate any of the Brown Act in terms of discussing an item that's not posted on the agenda.
And to that end, you, in your council member comments, be cautious with how much you speak to the item. And do not arrive at a consensus across three, which would be a majority, because it's not on tonight's agenda. At most, you can just direct staff to bring it back on a future agenda. And I'm happy to take a moment and respond to the questions that are directly posed to me with the mayor.
And yes, I would like that, if the council, if I have the council. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Summers.
As I understood the questions, they were, one, on the warrants, the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution authorizes warrants upon probable cause as supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and persons and things to be seized. The courts have created a variety of further definitions for all of those terms. As I noted, there are regular warrants that are approved always by a judge upon a declaration of probable cause that have to particularly describe what is to be seized or searched and who and where, and then presented to the person at said site. Then the warrant is executed. There are other warrants that are also warrants approved by a judge, supported by an affirmation or declaration of probable cause, again, describing in particularity what is to be seized, where and when, or the persons to be seized or searched, and again, signed by a judge, and then executed without presenting them immediately. So in short, the Patriot Act is not part of this discussion. It's all provided for under the Fourth Amendment and a similar state law. I forget the exact citation to the state amendment. And again, I have no exact knowledge of this case. The raid in this case was done by the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, in particular the Narcotics Division. The City Attorney's Office of City of Ojai does not work with or is not directly involved in the Narcotics Division's activities. They run independent. So I have no information as to what type of warrant was used in this case and cannot speak to that in detail, but I've just noted the types of warrants generally. With regard to the individual who asked, who can I talk to get more information on this, I would suggest a couple of sources. One, the Public Information Officer for the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, Captain John Riley, whose contact information will be available on the Ventura County Sheriff's Office website. Two, in regard to your own or the patient's or individual's health information, I would suggest consulting your own attorney or consulting I would assume that the collective will have some information available to their members or their patients on this issue. That is not a subject in which the city can give you advice, and I expect that you may get a similar answer from the Sheriff's Department, unfortunately. With regard to, I think that was the questions that were asked.
I think so. Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to move into our next segment of the of this meeting. We're going to move into the council member report, and I'm going to start with council member Clapp.
We're going to try to limit to 3 minutes, right?
Yes, 3 minutes.
No problem. I assume that we want to report about our other appointments to other boards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
The VCTC, which is the Ventura County Transportation Commission, there's really nothing to report. Budget was passed. They are redoing the 23101 transition because there's so many wrecks there. That's underway, and they're continuing to finish the project between the city of Ventura and Santa Barbara, the bike trail, and all those various and sundry seawall modifications, et cetera. The last subcommittee meeting with the OBGMA, which is the Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency, was canceled because the hydrologist is so busy because of what's going on. All hydrologists in the state are overburdened, and so we have sort of stalled out on this, the draft of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, but it will proceed as quickly as possible. Regarding the VRSD, which is the Ventura Regional Sanitation District, the only thing I have to report on that is that the Toland landfill is now in a major expansion. The biosolids facility was shut down for some air quality standard issues. It's not known when it will be opened up again, which is really unfortunate. So the biosolids that are coming into the facility are no longer being utilized, and they're put in the landfill. The other is the liaison to the Building Appeals Board. I was stuck in LA and unable to attend the meeting, but I did watch it online. The meeting was somewhat incoherent and redundant. There were no matters discussed that could not be handled by our excellent Planning Commission nor City Council. As it stands right now, the expanded duties being brought by, this is what my takeaway from this meeting was, is that I think as it stands right now, the expanded duties being brought before BAB are taking extra staff time, as well as city attorney time, and I am assuming that the city attorney this is outside of your retainer, your attendance of these meetings?
The attendance of the last two I attended on the vacant building ordinance was per this council's direction. I don't normally attend the Building Appeals Board meetings unless requested by the city manager.
Okay, but when you do attend them, it's outside of the retainer?
It would depend on the reason for which I'm attending it. The only ones that I have attended so far have been outside the retainer.
Okay, thank you. And that this is not, I have determined, in my opinion, that, I'll back up, the expanded duties being brought before the BAB are taking extra staff time as well as city attorney time, and obviously this last 2 times at the expense outside of the retainer. And that this is not the best use of our overburdened staff and a waste of taxpayer dollars. I suggest we return to the original intent of the State Building Appeals Board via the State of California, and have the Building Appeals Board be solely for building appeals, and return policy making to the City Council where it belongs. The Building Appeals Board seems to be taking very aggressive action to drive policy, and that's an inappropriate use of that board. So that's my report. Thank you.
Councilmember Wyrick.
Yeah, I'm going to take my 3 minutes, and I'm going to be cognizant of warnings from the city attorney, but I'm going to express opinions and facts as I understand them, and moral obligations of the city council, and I think that's quite within the appropriate realm. I want to say a couple facts that I think we all need to remind ourselves about. I think it's a fact that we have had medical care recommended by doctors disrupted for literally hundreds of citizens in the city of Ojai. That's a fact. I think it's also worthy of note as a fact that the warrant that was executed has not yet been made public a week after execution. So I think that's also a fact worth noting. I think it's also worth noting that there is no real scientific debate about whether the use of cannabinoid preparations is legitimate medical practice. It is. Ventura County Healthcare Agency states medical use of marijuana is appropriate treatment in some cases. 3 days after this warrant was executed, 3 bills were signed by the governor that had already been passed by the legislature at the time this action occurred, further legitimizing and recognizing medical uses of marijuana as legitimate, and in fact going to become further institutionalized through regulation in the state of California. And that was in response to the fact that medical marijuana has been legitimized in the state of California for years. So the question that I have, and I think it's worth our asking, it's a legitimate moral question for us as city officials to ask, is what justified the disruption of medical care to so many citizens in Ojai? What was the pressing issue that justified this? There may well be an explanation. And it is, I think, incumbent upon us as elected officials to ask for those explanations, beginning with being able to see the warrant, which has, I believe, not yet been made public. And I think to be assured, given the fact that, of course, we support as citizens the Sheriff's Department with more than $3 million a year, to ask it, and our contract includes aspects of consultation, that we simply get an explanation. I think we're due an explanation of what was the pressing need to take this action, resulting in a disruption of what is clearly legitimate medical care to hundreds of Ojai citizens. There may be an issue there. I don't know. If there is one, I think that we need to make sure that that we have an explanation of a proportionate response, just as elected officials representing our citizens. I think it's worth noting that back in 2009-2010, the Attorney General of the United States said there would be no federal action against medical marijuana installations by federal officials in states that had legitimized medical marijuana, and that the U.S. Congress back in 2014, at the end of 2014, inserted into the appropriation bill the same thing, further specifying this. So we have actions by the legislature legitimizing medical marijuana activity, signed by the governor right after this occurred, and I think we need an explanation. If there was other than medical marijuana going on, that's wrong. But if this was a targeted on just medical marijuana, we need an explanation. And I just think that as elected officials, we should demand that explanation.
We can't.
Councilmember Haney?
Quite an evening.
Hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, tell me. Ventura County Animal Shelter passed their budget, and aside from that, there's not much going on in it, so I don't have any more to report on that. I can say this much for I did set in on one of the OPGMA meetings for Betsy, and they are waiting for more state input regarding
Yes.
continuing to set up their operations. And I will be sitting with the OPGMA on Ojai Day from 10 to 12. So come on down and say hi.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Lara. One of the other responsibilities that I have, along with sitting on the council, is I am on the board, and this year I've been the chairman of the board of Gold Coast Transit District. And our board meeting is tomorrow, so I will take Mo's comments with regard to the bus bench at Chaparral School to my board meeting tomorrow and ask that the drivers that participate in this particular route give me back some information as to what they've seen at that park bench, and I hope we can do some enforcement on the side as well. But I'll, next meeting, be able to give us more information on what I found out through the actual bus drivers. I think that all of us feel if there's an ordinance on the books that shouldn't be enforced, it shouldn't be on the books. And I think bringing back the hedge issue is an important one. But I can tell you, I've gotten more compliments on the street or outside council chamber on the fact that we're finally doing something to trim back the hedges than I have negative comments. The only negative comments I've gotten are the ones here in the chambers. So there is a difference in opinion, and everybody's entitled to that, and we have to decide what we're going to do. As far as the medical marijuana situation, I don't think there's any doubt. And for those people that spoke tonight, I can't believe there's anybody that would say that there shouldn't be a dispensary for medical marijuana. I don't know anything about the warrant, but the warrant has to have on its face the reason why the raid happened. And whether that's true or not, that's yet to be known, but it has to be at least whoever is wanting to issue that warrant and execute on that warrant has to have enough information to be able to convince a judge who is supposed to be impartial that illegal activity was being conducted there. All I can say is go through the information office of the sheriff, as we've said. I don't think the DA's office is going to have anything at this point yet, but the warrant is pretty critical because that's going to say exactly what they went there for. And I think we have, as I don't think I could say it any better than Councilman Wyrick said it. I feel exactly the same as he does.
Yeah, something, Councilmember
Just real
Haney.
quick, I want to state something too about the hedges, and I'm not opposed to discussing those again, but I just want to bring up a real life scenario. The other day I'm backing out of my driveway, and I live on 513 Pleasant, and I almost ran over a baby in a baby carriage and a grandmother. And that's not the first time I've done that. And that's not the first opportunity I've had to actually talk to someone when that occurs. I live in a neighborhood where there's probably 10 to 12 new babies. And I get questioned all the time about people when they're pushing their carriage, whether it's the mother, the father, or the grandparents. They want to know how we can help prevent people backing out of their driveways from hitting them or from almost hitting them. So when we talk about this hedge issue, we need to talk about safety. And as a landscaper and as a person that's been in plants my entire life, yeah, I agree. They're sacred. But I'm not willing to give up someone's life or the safety of any of our members in this community for a hedge that obscures the opportunity for someone to stop, slow down, or be aware of someone walking or riding a bike. I'm just not going to give that up.
My report on the hedges, just comment, support bringing it back, talking it as a whole. I think we have to do a better job marketing, getting public input. I sit on the Transportation Policy Committee for the Southern California Association of Government. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of data going back and forth in terms of planning for our next RTP and SES. And I could have given a whole explanation on that. It'll take way more than 3 minutes. But the bottom line is that it's important because it helps us plan and lobby state funding to improve our neighborhoods. So I think that in terms of the Transportation Committee, we've been advocating complete streets concept and advocating putting funding into that budget for local jurisdictions to make improvements. And there's actually a campaign going on from this organization that's called Go Human that's encouraging complete streets, that we're going to have our complete streets have some of their material on Ojai Day promoting that campaign. And I'm also lucky enough to promote it on one of the big radio stations in Spanish to get our county more involved with this whole concept of complete streets. So it's very exciting. Interviews tomorrow will be aired on Saturday and Sunday in Spanish, if anybody speaks Spanish would like to hear it. I had a hoc committee on the cultural resources. We will have an update October 26th, or we are planning on a workshop for October 26th. We want to make sure to see if most of the council could be there. Again, it's a workshop to educate our public on what these policies mean and what it means for development. And we'll also we're still working on that consultation trial, and what we're calling a PAW, preliminary archaeological assessment trial run to see if we could make the process more fluid and more concrete, I should say. The Green Coalition, Deborah gave a great report on that. Thank you, Deborah, and we'll be hearing more from the Green Coalition later on in this meeting. Planning Commission reviewed. I just want to state, our liaison, I just want to state that they did a fantastic job looking at second unit guidelines, giving staff direction on what they want to focus on. I was very impressed by our planning commissioners. Another just side note, we are looking for a youth commissioner. We are going to be conducting youth commissioner interviews for the Park and Recreation Commission. I will also note that I'm attending the Ventura Drought Task Force put on by the governor that wants input from our local jurisdiction, local government agency to keep the governor abreast of the issues with the drought. I do want to note that I feel like I'm a little unqualified to go to this meeting because I don't sit on the OBGMA meeting or board. So I will go and report what is said because they're all the mayors, supervisors, or water purveyors are invited to this meeting. It's happening tomorrow, so I'll give a report on what's going on there. Or it'd be if anybody else that's on that board is willing to go because they have a little bit more knowledge about the water basin and the meetings, I'm more than happy to give up my seat to them. And also, I just wanted to mention again the emergency preparation meeting on Thursday. I think it's really important to start preparing for El Nino. And the last comment I do want to make is in regard to this Shangri-La issue. I think that we do have a moral responsibility as council members, and I would be open to bringing it up in as a discussion item to see if there's any direction that this council wants to take in regards but again, we can't talk about that right now. It was a public comment, but I just want to make those few remarks. And I am going to go on to our next segment, which is a consent calendar on our agenda.
I'll make an individual request of the Sheriff's Department, if that's nothing I'm asking council, but I would like to formally ask for the warrant to be made public as soon as possible.
That's out of my control.
But you can communicate it.
Yeah, I can.
I'm not asking.
Sure.
He can communicate the desire.
I'm going to move on with our consent calendar. Is anyone wishing to pull an item, or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if I can be the one to pull the item, but I have to abstain from one of them. It's item K, and I'd like to have that voted on separately. But I
Okay.
don't know if I'm the one that can actually pull it. I'd rather have somebody else do it. Okay, thank you.
And I have a question on J.
A question on J. So any motion for the rest of the items?
I move to approve the rest of the items on the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call?
Clap. Wyrick.
Aye.
Haney.
Yes.
Blatt.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes. Item J, Councilmember Wyrick.
Two quick questions, sorry. One, what is the deliverable for our $5,000 that they're asking us to contribute to this? And two, I saw that there was a implication of contributing one technical staff member to the advisory working group, and I'm not sure we have the resources to do that.
So the answer to the first question is this is a feasibility study, and its purpose is to assess the feasibility of having a community choice aggregation program for the two counties. And it would be, what it is it's a way of buying alternate energy generated from alternate sources. The recommendation is to provide the money, but not to provide any staff time. We don't have any staff time available.
So that would not be provided.
Right.
Good, okay.
Any other questions on that item? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve item J.
Second.
Roll call?
Clap. Yes. Wyrick.
Aye.
Haney.
Yes.
Blatt.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes. And item K, just protocol, a question for our city attorney. Would we have to ask Mayor Pro Tem Blatz to step out when we make this motion, or?
Given that Mayor Pro Tem Blatz's expected recusal is not for a financial conflict, but rather a common law conflict, he would not be required to leave the dais for this item, just to abstain.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions on this item, or I'll entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second. Roll call?
Clap. Yes. Wyrick.
Aye.
Haney.
Yes.
Blatt.
Abstain.
Laura.
Yes. Our second item, public hearing, a moratorium on the issuance of private water well permits. I'll turn it over for staff report.
Thank you. Very briefly, Mayor and members of the City Council, a year ago, both the city and the county adopted moratoria on the drilling of water wells within the groundwater basin area, pending the preparation of a groundwater sustainability plan. And as was indicated in earlier conversation, that is underway, but has taken more than a year to do. The county has different authorities than the city, so the county's moratorium continues on until the sustainability plan is submitted to the state. But in our case, it expires at the end of the month unless the city council votes by a 4/5 majority to extend it. And so the recommendation is to do that.
Any questions from council members?
Just clarification, so what we passed said that it would be lifted upon submission of the sustainability plan by OBGMA or a date certain, and we're hitting the date certain.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? This is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak on this item? I don't have any speakers cards. Yes, if you mind stepping, Mr. Quillisi, and stating your name for the record.
Thank you, Mayor Laura, excuse me. Steve Quillisi, West Eucalyptus Street in the city. From what I've read of the backup material to the agenda, it sounds like the county's moratorium is an indefinite one. but it also sounds like the city's moratorium is at best 1 year long. Is that correct? I'm unclear on that, and since I noticed that the motion here is to extend it till next October, which that's actually more than a year from when it was first enacted, why only to October? Why not have an indefinite moratorium the way the county does? And if that is not justified in the minds of the city council, what is? Is this October something of 2016 the right number? How do we come up with that number? That's what I'm curious about. Thank you very much.
Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. First of all, the county's is not exactly indefinite. It also continues until the submission of the sustainability plan to the state by OBGMA. When this first came up, Mr. Fletcher, who was city attorney at the time, analyzed the legal requirements as far as passing moratorium are concerned, and the county actually has different powers than the city and is passing it pursuant to those different powers. So we're not a water purveyor and we're not a county, so we don't have the same powers that they do. Ours is can only be done in stages as it has been done. So we're recommending the maximum extension that's available to you at this time.
And that extension is under the government code provisions that allow any general law city, or any city, even charter cities, to adopt moratoriums for up to a total of 2 years in 3 stages, 45 days, then 10 and a half months, adding up to the first year, and then 1 more year.
Okay.
Clarification
Yes,
question?
council member. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this item before I turn it back to the council?
And
No?
so-
Then I'll close the public hearing and.
No, I didn't ask for that. but it's
Well, I
clarifying
just
question.
wanted, I'll turn it back to the council.
The lifting of the moratorium upon submission of the sustainability plan is still in place as before, unchanged.
Correct.
Yes. So it's, in other words, 1 year or the plan is submitted, whichever hits first.
And for clarification from our members on the board on the OBGMA, as I heard Councilmember Haney say, they're waiting on information from the state.
Yes.
In order, do they have any idea when they're going to receive that information?
No.
Okay, that could probably be a question I have for this governor's drought task force.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was another consideration. Do you remember what it was that they were were they adding more conditions? Do you recall?
They didn't talk about the condition, they were just
Yeah.
saying they were waiting for more state
Yeah,
information.
yeah, because there's something that happened in there, along with Jordan Kerr being so swamped with other, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions regard? And my question was similar to Mr. Quillis's in regards to if we don't have the sustainability agency in a year, do we have the ability to extend the moratorium or?
Unfortunately, no. It's a hard 2-year max for this type of government code moratorium. We aren't able to extend it past that 2 years. Our options at that stage would be to identify another basis for the moratorium that is not providing time for the Groundwater Management Agency to put together its groundwater management report or sustainability report. At this time, I'm not sure if the facts would be in place to come up with another justification for the moratorium that would be reasonable and defensible. If the drought still continues, we would likely be able to find a way to do that, but I don't want to guarantee that we can. Alternatively, Casitas is a water provider. It would have the power to adopt a well moratorium, I would think, although again, I don't know if they've analyzed that. I don't know if that's within their wish list. They have some of the powers that the county has that we don't, as not a water provider. That would be another approach, would be a cooperative approach with Casitas, seeing if they could pick up what we have to put down.
Okay, so there's options to talk about in a year before.
Yeah, we have,
this
and we
more-
would look at them well before the expiration of the year.
Great. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve.
Second?
Clapp. Yes. Wyrick.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Blatz.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes. Our third item is a discussion item, proposed modifications to the Arcade and Libby Park pergola pendant policy. And I'll turn it over to staff for a report.
Thank you, and Ms. Wald will be making this presentation.
Another long night.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, so yes, before you tonight is the proposed modifications to the Arcade and Libby Park pergola pennant policy. And as you know, this was before you previously, earlier in the year, and was decision of the City Council to send it back to the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, for additional review. They have conducted that additional review, and in fact, staff made the modifications to the policy and then took it back one more time for them to make sure that was exactly what they wanted to send forward to you. I would like to just point out there's one, I put in the staff report, the policy, but somehow or other I missed items 7 through 12. They are on your attachment A, which is the actual draft policy, so I apologize for that error. And I just wanted to say that also included in your staff report is the HPC's rationale for why they made the changes and why they're presenting the policy as it is presented for you tonight. I would just like to say that the two items of concern when it came to you previously was the issue of city-sponsored events, and we can review that, which is on attachment A. It now reads, pennants shall be allowed for city-sponsored events, events organized by nonprofit or not-for-profit agencies, and any other organization sponsoring event deemed appropriate by the HPC for events occurring within the city of Ojai. So if you remember before, the way it was worded, there was some concern about the Tangerine Pixie that the chamber sponsors. I think this language now provides enough flexibility that they will accommodate that. The second issue was with the music festival, and I would ask you to refer to the attachment A, page 2, if you turn it over, and that would be item 11 that says the pennant policy allows for pennants and nothing else. Flag, lanterns, or other decorative items are expressly prohibited unless previously approved. It's been modified. It goes on to say, and as such time as design is proposed for redesign shall be allowed to be displayed. So just like to say that that item was modified to allow the lanterns that the music festival uses to remain until such time they would be prohibited if they change their design. I did some outreach to both the chamber and the music festival. They have representatives here tonight, and I included their letters that were submitted in the past package. And with that, I'm open to any questions you might have regarding the policy.
Any questions from council? I have one clarification question to ask. On item 2, after it talks about applicants must submit an initial application package to the Community Development Department at a minimum of 14 days prior to HPC review of the design portion. This next part, could you explain a little bit more in depth with the understanding that subsequent yearly applications may be required?
I think that the intent of that is that they did that with the Pixie pennants. They required, the first year was sort of a tentative kind of look-see at them, and then they wanted them to come back for review for the second year. And they just want the ability to do that if there were some, I don't know in what situation they would think that would be appropriate, but they wanted to leave that ability for them to condition the pennants that it may just be a one-time only.
Because, and then in another section here, it talks about how the pennants will be allowed as long as there's no modification to the design. So I'm just looking
Seems
for
a little contradictory.
Consistency here. So I just want to make sure. I know that was one of my issues I had. I just wanted make it simple, consistent. Was my concern.
I will offer that on item number 2, where it says with the understanding that subsequent years yearly applications may be required. That the concerns that staff has heard from people applying, such as the Pixie Tangerine folks, is that it's a quite a large outlay in capital to get the pennants produced the first time around, and that generally speaking, everyone assumes that if they put that outlay out there, that they're going to be able to use it year after year. So I think that's the feedback that I've received on it being, one time only. So this is the way HPC presented it. It is available for you tonight to modify. One would, I think, look at that and see that there's an inconsistency and maybe modify number 2, is what staff would recommend.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Number 4 mentions basically the no further review once approved. I assume you already specified about existing ones being grandfathered unless the design changes.
Correct. That's under 11.
And then number 6 refers to a placed on the calendar once a comprehensive sign program has been approved. So there's an intent to move on to a comprehensive sign program after this policy is modified and accepted by the council. And would the grandfathering be included in the comprehensive sign program by policy, or still an open question?
That's my understanding, that the only particular pennant that ever had a reapply condition placed on it was the tangerine, pixie tangerines. Am I saying that correct? I hope. So I don't think there was any issue with any other pennants, and those have always just rolled over. And what takes place is they come in and they show staff the pennants and make sure that they're in good condition, and then they're allowed to be hung. And so it doesn't go back to HPC. So I believe that the only point that appears to be inconsistent with this would be the number 2, the subsequent yearly applications. Otherwise, it seems that it's appropriate, and it's allowing the grandfathering in of all the pennants. And the other issue I would only point out is that on, I think, number 12, where it says limit the number to 10 events to display each year, and that would take that grandfathering into account. Those people are already in the queue. So the 10 events, I think we had, I think it's in the back of your packet here, that there was a listing we provided the first time around over how, yes, it's item D, attachment D, and it talks about the pennants, and so right now we have 7 that are occurring. And so there's space for 3 more, but whoever, first come, first serve, so if you want to call it grandfathered, those first 7 are grandfathered in, and then there's room in the calendar year for 3 more.
And there would still there's always appeal process to council out of any of these rulings by the HPC, right?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from council? Would anybody from the public want to speak on this item? Yes, it's Mr. Quillisi and then Mr. Iker, and if you could please state your name for record.
Steve Quillisi, West Eucalyptus Street in the city. Just 2 suggestions. One, that you delete item 12. I don't see why we should limit this to 10 events per year. I don't know what's going on in the city beyond 10 events per year, but it seems like a very arbitrary number. And if people are only putting up pennants for 2 weeks at a time, that's only 20 weeks out of 52. It seems to me that we may wish to encourage tourism with pennants beyond 20 weeks a year, and it should not be necessary for people who want to do that to have to come before the city council and first of all get a no answer from the HPC and then come appeal it to the city council. That seems like an onerous requirement. And second, I do agree that the last part of the last sentence of item 2 ought to be deleted. Thank you.
Mr. Iker?
Good evening, Mayor Lara and council members and staff. I came before you last year on this same subject, and I submitted a letter at that time, which I believe is also in your packet, so you know that my feeling is that this really is not an HPC concern, because I consider pennants to be temporary signage, and you also know that I don't think that there's any threat to the historic architectural integrity by the use of pennants, period. And I'm still not sure, after what I've heard, whether or not we've been grandfathered in. 2016 will be the 3rd year that we've requested to hang our pennants in support of the Pixie Tangerine promotion that the Ojai Visitors Bureau does. It'll be the 4th year of our promotion, but the 3rd year of hanging the pennants. One of the things that we experienced last year was a major synchronicity with synchronicity, with the growers and the merchants. We had a really great buy-in with the merchants in and around the arcade for the Pixie Tangerine promotion through the entire month of April, including through the tennis tournament time. We had a gathering with the merchants and the growers at the Ford Ranch, and that really brought this forward. And the success we had with that synchronicity expanded into the improved promotion we received from the media, both online and in print, about the Pixie Tangerine season. And the Pixie Tangerine is unique to Ojai. It is the only place that it grows as well as it does here, and practically the only place it does grow. It has also been given not an appellation but a species designation by Sunkist. The pennants do meet two of the three prerequisites that Mr. Clark put out for the HPC, and two of those I think are enough out of the three. Our design has not changed from the first year, and quite frankly, it does support two of the three legs of our economy. It supports agriculture and tourism, both of which help support the operating budget of the city. It is also critical to our overall effort to promote Ojai as a tourism destination. It has been, from our first trip to New York during the polar surge a few years back, when we sent Veronica Cole to New York, and she took a dozen tangerines to each of 12 A-list travel writing magazine editors, and it got those people interested. Those tangerines got those people interested in leaving snowbound New York and coming out in April to see the tangerines on the tree in Ojai. And they did come. We had 6 out of 12 come that month. So it is in that vein that I respectfully urge you to continue the permission for the OVB to hang its pennants in the arcade for the first 2 weeks of April. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else in the public wanting to speak on this item? If not, then I will turn it over to the council for further deliberation or discussion. Any, Councilmember Wyrick?
I have a concern with the premise on page 3-3 on item 3. And especially just listening to Mr. Iker just now, where it says that the premise is that pennants were never intended to advertise a product, a business, or an event held elsewhere. And then, of course, it goes on to the 10 events. I'm just wondering about the entire premise. I mean, by that premise, it could be argued that since the Pixie Festival is basically, the Pixie event is basically a community-wide event, it's for the entire community and not just downtown. I just wonder if indeed we all buy into that premise, that that the pennants are never meant to be, that a special event recognized by the community, recognized by the city government, can't include a promotion by pennants if it's not strictly limited just to the downtown. In the park or the downtown historic district. It's a special event being held in the park or in the downtown historic district. That's it. It seems, maybe more limiting than we want, and I also think that 10 is pretty arbitrary.
So in terms in the third item, then would you even have a area that you want to identify?
Well, I'm wondering if it's a special event to the community, why do we, I don't know. I don't have an answer. It's a question in my mind.
Okay.
In response to that as well, I can understand that as far as the intent from HPC was that it be an Ojai event. And technically, the Pixie tangerines aren't grown in Ojai. They're grown in the Ojai Valley. But it is a promotion for the city of Ojai as well. And that's an event that I think is fully within the intent of the banner policy. Now, do I think that if there was a event in Oakview, would we allow banners in our arcade? No, clearly not, because it wouldn't be part of our our community. But I don't think it has to be held specifically just in the downtown historic district either. So I think that needs to be reworded. As far as the 10 events per year, I know, having been through the discussions of that when I was the liaison of HBC, they felt that the arcade needed to be the arcade with no banners for a substantial portion of the year, and that to give up the historic nature of the arcade for 10 events was probably appropriate. I don't know whether 10 is the right number or not. I think that the issue would be what is the event and not the number. I think they were afraid that if you said more than 10, that you'd have everybody that would want to challenge our, I don't know whether it be vagueness in the ordinance or the policy, that anybody could say, well, why aren't we allowed? The Pixie Tangerines are allowed. They're not in the city, and neither are we, but still, we believe it's a community-wide event, whether that be a Monica Ross event or an Ojai Valley School event or whatever it happens to be, Basant Meadow School. So I think that's one of the issues that they were concerned about, was that events that may not be specifically encumbering Ojai in terms of an event might then be able to be on the arcade, so we'd have it 52 weeks a year when we don't have the tennis tournament or any of these other events or Christmas or whatever. So I have no problem with it, limiting it to 10, assuming that we have an option to exceed the 10 if an event were to be of such significance that we would consider it.
Just on the comment of 10, I agree. I don't think, I'm with you. I think that I think that we could limit. I don't know, again, if 10 is the right number, but I see their point of view, and I kind of feel like, okay, that would give a break too, and main focus could be on the historic structure there. In terms of the premises, I do want to weigh on that. I think that extending it to the Ojai Valley, as long as it has some connection to the city, would seem appropriate. So if Marimani, Upper Ojai, Oakview, or was involved in an event like Pixie, where I think that we could potentially support any type of event that involves all that area. I have no issue with that. I do go back to the number 2, the issue that I brought up of the subsequent yearly application may be required. Are they talking more about the application, or are they talking more about pendants? Because I just can't wrap my head around why the application would be different than the pendant or the event, or why they would need to look at that if nothing has changed.
I think that they were, my understanding is that they wanted to leave in their, that language to allow them to condition certain sign permits, comprehensive sign permits, that they would have to come again in the next year. That they weren't necessarily obligated to approve those pennants for ongoing. I think they wanted that, and I think that you've pointed out, it seems to be contradictory, and so we would probably recommend that you remove that.
Yeah, I just don't see a need to have that, to be honest with you. I would be for removing that last line on number 2. Councilmember Clapp?
The 10 events, page 3-3, number 2, talks about a maximum of 10 events should be allowed, including the 6 weeks when Christmas lanterns hang in the arcade. So I don't want to do the math in my own head. So the 10 events also includes those 6 weeks? Or are they over and above?
This is Vice Chair Walker's. He wanted to provide this. This is straight from his language, from his memo to you. The way that it's worded is it's a pennant policy, and these are specifically talking about pennants. The 10 events are pennant events. That's his interpretation, that it's pennants and the lanterns. It's not worded that way. It's worded, limit the number to 10 events to display each year. The policy clearly states in it, if you look at number 11, the pennant policy allows for pennants and nothing else. We're talking about nothing else. It's very clear the 10 events would be pennant.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The way that they came up with 10 is there's 52 weeks in the year, and 10 to is 20 weeks, and then 6 with the lanterns comes up with 26 weeks. So 26 weeks, that was half the year. So 10 events plus 6 weeks came up with the 26 weeks. So I think there's a little confusion.
Right.
That's how they came up with 10 weeks.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
You know,
Councilmember Haney?
Thank you, Mayor. I remember this was one of the very first discussions that I had when I came on the city council. I'm still lost in it. I'm just, we spend so much time on this. And I have questions to ask, like, how did it get to Historical Preservation Commission? If it was a planning commission issue early on, how did it go from one body to another body? I'm sure I can ask that privately. The next thing is, we're not hanging pictures of alcohol, we're not hanging pictures of drug paraphernalia, we're not hanging pictures of naked ladies. I get caught up in all of this clarification. It can only be this, it can only be that. I'm lost in that, and now we're gonna have someone come back and every 2 years have to reapply. Again, I'm lost in it. I couldn't agree more with Scott. I don't know why. So, you guys, I'll let you beat it to death.
So if I might,
I need to opt out of it. I'm like I said, I just, like, as Mayor Lahr said, I can't wrap my head around it.
So I might just then, if I may, suggest that if that's what I'm hearing, that there is some concerns from the Visitors Center, Visitors Chamber of Commerce still about the Pixie tenants, that with Matt could concur, help me craft this, we could add a 13th number to it and say all of those pennants currently shown on attachment D, which would include the Pixie Tangerine pennant, are all grandfathered in. And that way it closes the loop on any confusion anybody has on that. That would be my suggestion.
I would agree with that. And to kind of answer Councilman Haney, it's because of the historic nature of the arcade that HPC oversees anything that goes on with regard to the arcade. That's the reason why.
Yeah, and I might agree with that, but again, like I said, their pennants are actually, to me, they're separate from the historic
Nature?
Yeah, like I said, I'm just lost on it. And, we're talking about hanging some pennants to celebrate this community. And we're gonna get caught up in, it can only be certain size, it can only be certain colors, it can only be certain days. And I don't get it. And do we have an excessive amount of people interested in hanging pennants on a yearly basis that we would have to even limit this? I mean, is it like, do we get 52 weeks out of the year where someone wants to hang a pennant in Ojai?
No, we don't. I think that's just a fear that they have. It's a concern the HPC has expressed, that they want, as Councilman Blatt said, they wanted to have some assurance that it's not going to be year-round, that something's hung in the arches. They want the historic building to have a period of time where those people, that the citizens of Ojai, can see it in its pristine state. That's just how they feel. That is what they do as historic preservation. They're more concerned about the historic nature of the building and not the pennants.
And any decision that they do make is appealable to us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true for any commission decision, generally.
Okay.
I would definitely also approve of the number 13 on there. I do see, I respect the HPC's concern in this matter because it is historical structure that they're dealing with, and they're doing their due diligence, in my point of view. I do think that there's some modifications that we could add that we've discussed, and I just feel that overall, I would absolutely support extending the premises, the area of influence in terms of the special events that are allowed. And I would also, I would want to eliminate the last item on the second point of the policy. And then with that, I don't know if there's any other comments or if anybody's willing to make a motion, or if...
Before you may make a motion, I have suggested language to accomplish Director Wold's suggestion, which would be notwithstanding the foregoing, pennants for the events listed on the attachment, which is here labeled attachment D, shall be approved by the Community Development Department on an ongoing basis, period. With the understanding that that would, if you left in place the 10 event number, that could be on top of what's there now.
I do have another question. In terms of, we're assuming that, for example, the tennis tournament and the Pixie month, that this only applies if they request for the space every year. What if they decide to not put an event 1 year? Would that eliminate their grandfather status of putting, of holding that event, or reapplying the following year? Would, as long as it's the same application, did you decide not to do another?
I think that this stays grandfathered in until they decide they want to add different pennants. They come in
okay.
and they want to have a change in design. That's the way the policy, says. That's the way it's always been administered. That they have the right. So nobody can. It's not a first come first serve on a yearly basis. No one can take the tennis tournament's period of time. They have that time allocated to them until such time they came in and they either let us know they're not going to use it anymore, or they reapplied for some different type of pennant, but they'd still be grandfathered in for that time event. Can't imagine anybody putting something else in there.
I just wanted to make sure I
And
did.
Yeah.
perhaps as a point of clarification, to ensure that I understand the council's goal, the language that I just quoted to you that would be the grandfathering language wouldn't require design changes to be approved for these events. They're in. If the intent is to have design changes approved by the HPC, then we can build that into.
Okay.
Would the design change be approved by HPC or by the planning commission, or both? Because I can remember new banners coming before the planning commission when I was on it.
That would be the typical approach that we would do, would come through as a sign permit.
Yeah.
No, the code specifically says that when signs are proposed for historic buildings, HPC, I think that was changed somewhere along the line, the HPC has the jurisdiction. They no
Total-
longer go, we don't make them go through both approving bodies.
Okay.
They just go to HPC.
Okay.
Again, this is just temporary signage. But regular signage that goes on the arcade, when we have businesses going out, they just go to HPC also.
Okay. I'm all right. I mean, I'm all right with that. I just don't know, except for size and placement. And once the event is grandfathered, I'm not really sure how HPC would argue about a design.
No, it'd be only if they presented a new design and new colors.
Right, but I'm
That would be
saying
it.
I don't know how HPC could argue about a new design. I mean, once you've got where the banners are placed and the size of the banner, who's to say that they can't put any design up there they want?
Well,
I mean, that's my only thought on that.
Get the Arts Commission involved.
Yeah, I mean, the Arts Commission could be involved, and then it can be appealed to us, and, I mean, what might look beautiful to the person that designed the sign and the event, or the banner and the event, they're certainly not designing something they don't like. How can we say, no, we don't like that, you shouldn't put it up? I'm just confused at that.
well, there may be enough criteria in this new pennant policy where, staff within the Community Development Department could look at these criteria and issue them. I mean, that is something that you could consider. right now, they do go before the HPC for them to compare the penates to this policy.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yeah, just to reiterate, the statement is in number 8. I think just to amplify what Councilman Platt says. The size, colors, design, and material of the pennants shall be subject to approval by the Historic Preservation Commission. That's pretty much everything to do with the pennant.
If no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the motion as amended through our discussion. If Mr. Summers would like to reiterate those changes, I think he took some notes.
As I understand the changes, it would be on page 3 of 5, item 2, delete the final clause so that item 2 would read, applications must submit an initial application package to the Community Development Department at a minimum of 14 days prior to the HPC's review of the design portion, period. And on item 12 would be left in place, from what I understand. And then item 13 would be, notwithstanding the foregoing, this is added, pennants for the events listed on the attachment shall be approved by the Community Development Department on an ongoing basis upon application. And then, do we want to add for pennant designs existing as of tonight?
Yes, I would add that.
So this is the Pixie Tangerine.
Yeah. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Clapp?
Yes.
Wyrick?
Yes.
Haney?
No.
Blatz?
Yes.
Lara?
Yes. The next item is the Ojai Valley Green Coalition report on fiscal year 2014 to 2015 activities and proposed for fiscal year 2015 and 2016 support. And I will turn it over for just a brief comment from our staff, and then I'm sure we'll hear from the Green Coalition.
Sure. My brief comment is that we provided a $10,000 grant to the Green Coalition last year, and they're going to report on the results of that. And then secondly, the council appropriated $25,000 towards their program this year, but expressed an openness to consider an additional appropriation based on a business plan. And so they're here to present that proposal as well.
And is it they're requesting an additional 25 at this time?
They are. I guess I would add that fiscally, when we approved the budget, there was, in the general fund, there was, you made a number of cuts, which left about $51,000. So there is sufficient money in the general fund to cover the request if that's the desire of the council.
With that, then I'll welcome Deborah from the Green Coalition to make the report or the request.
Thank you. Thank you, first council members, for allowing us to take this time to give you a report. It feels good to do it, especially when it was the first year of funding, and the idea of staying very transparent to the city and to the members of the community. I would like to start on a personal note. I hate my job. We would all wish everyone on the planet practiced the golden rule and the coalition didn't need to exist. But that isn't the reality. Those who know me hear me often say I'm a pessimist, optimistically trying to prove myself wrong. My calling is one of service. The coalition found me, and I found the coalition. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge the coalition's 100th anniversary, 90 years early, just in case I'm not here for the real thing. So I'm trying to be optimistic there, and I do hope that we don't need the coalition in 2106, but if we do, that we can be here as an organization, pounding the pavement and talking to city council and others. Such great things. So let me practice. Very good. All right. So this is a report of our 2014-15 funding cycle with the city of Ojai. A big part of our effort is to be a resource and a conduit for the Ojai community. The coalition operates a downtown resource center which we asked the city to help support. As you can see, we have extensive literature resources. We also have a recycling area. We promote composting there. We have literature and even a nice cartoon graphic. And we offer recycling of hard-to-recycle items, such as holiday lights and media storage. Another convenient location for common recycling, like household batteries and printer cartridges. And then lots of people wouldn't know you can recycle your corks from wine and champagne bottles, which make for beautiful floor tiles. So we also take corks. We offer different displays and models. You'll see there on the left a display of our dark sky campaign, more appropriate exterior lighting, aka dark sky campaign, and then our laundry to landscape gray water education, and that's a model of gray water that we have there, and people come and pick up literature and look at it. We also have an extensive lending library of books and DVDs from present and past top sellers to field guides and picture books, and all of that was donated. We offer a little sitting room. Folks can come and peruse the library. They can actually watch one of our environmental DVDs right there. We are looking for donation of a headset if anyone has a spare. And we also have computers. Community can come in and use public computers for doing any type of research on environmental subjects that they might want to. Probably the most valuable contribution is being a meeting place and answering questions. Using last week as an example, a woman stopped in and asked where she could recycle a computer monitor. I let her know, and then when she started asking specific, I said, let's call and find out. So we called Goodwill Store in Oakview. That's their certified e-waste handler. Got the store hours, how she could do it, and all of that, and she went away with all her answers, questions ready to go. But I also do want to point out that BitVision in Ojai is also an e-waste handler. A call came in, what can I recycle at your location? And then the person proceeded to bring over items she said she'd had in her trunk of her car for 2 years. She brought in handheld electronics, household batteries, and holiday lights. This call was a bit unusual. I'm getting a new hot water heater through my home services insurance, and I know they're going to try to give me the cheapest one they can. What should I be asking for? She had never heard of Energy Star and the importance of maintaining a water heater. So I gave her all of that information to use, and she was very grateful. But my favorite call was a couple of years ago. I was coming in the front door of my home around 6:30 p.m., and the phone was ringing. I answered it, and the woman says, a staff person at the city gave me your number to help me. After taking a millisecond to be taken aback that someone at the city had my home number, we proceeded to talk for about a half hour. Here's the cool part. She wanted to know about the Energy Efficiency Financing Hero Program. Now, so happened just a couple of weeks earlier, a representative of the HERO program had presented to City Council, which I was attending. That prompted me to meet with a representative from the California First financing program, literally a couple of days before. So I felt really confident and capable explaining the programs and providing her with the pros and cons and what her options were. That was a good day. The city also sponsored 3 significant educational events that we did over the 2014-15 cycle. And then the one we're all really excited about. One long-running focus of the coalition has been outreach to educate the community on the health and environmental issues related to light pollution. A major milestone was the city passing an updated exterior lighting standards ordinance in August 2013. Which is one requirement for the city of Ojai to become a dark sky designated community. As a rural community with a robust visitor population on any given day, we believe this is a valuable designation on top of its environmental benefits once we meet all the criteria. Just to bring home the point, on the right is an image of the Ojai Valley from the Denison grade, and that brightest point you see is our Zodi Park. On the left is an image sent to us by Dr. Jonathan Swift at the Thatcher Observatory, who plans to bring the observatory back to its glory days. He shared, and I quote, Attached is a calibrated image of a clear, moonless night sky as seen from the Thatcher Observatory. This is an all-sky image, and it represents what you might see laying on your back with your head. Oops, hold on. Excuse me. I think I stapled my papers wrong. Yep. Okay. Wow. Pointing, okay. So this is an image that represents what you might see laying on your back with your head pointing to the north. The first feature to notice is that the night sky is much darker toward the north and northeast where there is only national forest land. That serves as a good reference point to compare the sky brightness toward populated areas. And then he proceeds to talk about Fillmore, Santa Paula, and Ventura are bright areas that you see on that image. He says, I have not found any historical measurements of the sky brightness in or around the Ojai Valley, so it is not possible for me to quantify how the light pollution has been changing with time. However, it is quite clear that the developed areas are contributing significant light pollution. And he'd be very interested in talking with us and helping us, partner with us to mitigate this issue of light pollution. Oop. Okay, so what we decided to do was, in considering what type of outreach we could do through the city funding, it was decided to try a city residential door-to-door approach, offering a complimentary retrofit for porch and yard lights. And I wanted to just share that the volunteers who put in over 200 hours in this, Gail Topping, George Berg, Sherry Ann Kate, Jay Simmons, Martin Potter, and Dave Palmer, they all stayed up late nights canvassing city streets and/or braved knocking on doors on several Saturdays. To the latter effort, let me just say the golden years of Leave It to Beaver and folks opening up the door with a smile are pretty much gone. We won't do that again, but it was good. As you can see, we offered 3 different types of retrofitting: frosting existing glass fixtures, replacing glass fixture with a solid shielded fixture, or putting a shielded bulb inside a glass fixture. And we do still have inventory. Folks can call us at 669-8445 if they're a city resident, and we could still help them with any 3 of those options if they thought it might work for them. And then I think you've seen this. We did create a door hanger that we put on the door if someone was not home. We had an ad in the Ojai Valley News for several weeks promoting the Porch Light Project and why it's important to preserve our night sky. And then we also created, all right, right on cue.
Right on cue.
All right, I know. I had no idea what that was. And we did also design a brochure to help us educate the community. This is the cover and back page with an inside panel and then the inside panels. Now, we keep the City Hall literature rack stocked and our resource center stocked, and we also distribute these at community events. So just by the numbers of the Porch Light Project, the number of streets we canvassed, approximately 65. We distributed all of our door hangers, 250. Number of brochures have been 300 plus just through this project. We distributed 60 plus retrofits, and we, again, still counting. And as I mentioned, we have approximately 200 hours, volunteer hours into this. And that's what we did for 2014-15. And as you have in front of you, and I wanted to put this up as an agenda item, you also have the included the discussion of the 2016 funding. And what I've done here is put up a very simplistic synopsis of funding scenarios, and I'm glad to answer any questions for you. We certainly thank you for the opportunity to share our work and the support that we would continue to get for our good work. And I will be back next month to introduce our new executive director, which is going to allow me to focus on more program work. So what we presented was a budget with actually showing if we were funded for $50,000, but then we did break it down as far as the narrative for the first approved $25,000. And as I had shared at that time, a lot of it is just being able to maintain who we are and what we've done over the years in the community. So for us to be able to maintain that, we are going to have to bring in more staff. But also a really large initiative that we would like to begin is what we're calling a watershed approach to water conservation, Save Our Water Ojai campaign. And then on the $50,000 column, basically it would be doing everything on the $25,000 column and then bringing in those other aspects if we are funded at the $50,000 amount. So I'm glad to answer any questions. Or
Do we have any questions? Did anybody, council member, have questions for Deborah? I just want to understand where some of this, the items that you've put on our packet. And I know you gave us short explanation on what those items were, but I see some overlap on specific items. For example, on the work on bicycle and electrical vehicle infrastructure in collaboration with Complete Streets Committee. Could you give me an idea what visions you have on how that collaborative relationship would be with Complete Streets?
Well, one of the first things, and it's been on our to-do list, is to even have a liaison who comes to all of the meetings and brings the coalition perspective and maybe a little bit more of the environmental perspective into the conversation. So that's the big thing, is just to be able to bring a staff person in there and to be able to help support what they do. I know they often go into the community and do surveys and inspecting things, and we would just like to be able to help through that process. I will share that our new executive director has a lot of expertise in electric vehicles and electric vehicle infrastructure. And I think that could be a really big area for our community. You know, we have a lot of traffic, and that's probably one of our main greenhouse gases contributions, is just the amount of traffic that we have in our community. And to be able to support electric vehicles and bicycle transportation, I think, is going to be a big one for our community. Not to mention the air. We have the second worst air quality in the Ventura County, and a lot of people forget that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right about that. And then the other one is the water, Expand Save Our Water Ojai campaign.
Right. So, and then it says City Community Demonstration Garden. So, I wasn't here for a lot of the summer, and a lot apparently happened around that property, but I have to share, just making an assumption that the garden would be there, that had a conversation with Donna Dublin, who's the garden coordinator for the city. She has a full-time job, so she does this on the weekends and evenings when she can fit it in. And there's no doubt that the garden has fallen in disrepair in a lot of aspects. And and here's another thing that's really been on our to-do list for a long time, is to partner with the city and Donna to use that property, to bring it back to its glory days and really use it as an educational resource. We envision being able to show rainwater harvesting demonstration there, not doing a mock-up of a gutter, and also landscaping. We could even potentially find a way to show the laundry to landscape model and going out. So there's just a lot of potential there to be an educational resource to the community, especially through water-wise features that we can do in our homes. So we would love to support Donna and support, the compost area. I mean, it could really use some sprucing up. It's a great piece of property, and it's got a great kiosk. And I think it could act, if it's not already on the Visitors Bureau walking guide thing, it should be, and it could be worthy of that if it's brought back to its full potential.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, Councilmember Wyrick.
Yeah, I think that's what I was a little confused about. What you just discussed is, what I see is the 10,000 part of what's in the existing project request, right? Existing budget request? I mean, I'm looking at the part that's additional,
Right.
25, as opposed to what's already in the request on page 4-4, the Save Our Water Ojai campaign. I'm just trying to understand, that's separate from the 6,000 request for expand Save Our Water Ojai campaign?
Right, so the first $10,000 would be part of the $25,000 request. So a major chunk
The
of that
additional
money.
request or the first request?
The first request.
The first request, right.
It's 10 grand, yeah. So
Right,
that
I'm
would be a
talking
large
about, so
chunk of
that's part of the first request.
So then we're talking $6,000
Part of the
additional.
additional, yeah.
To bring in and,
Right, and I think maybe part of what
Expand.
Mayor Laura's question is exactly what the collaboration would involve with the Ventura River watershed organizations?
that organization is, as you might know, lost their coordinator, Lorraine Walters, and we've got years into this Ventura Watershed Council management plan. And the coalition, we are just committed to that plan, not collecting dust on a shelf. And in fact, we're calling together the stakeholders to look at the San Antonio Creek campaign that's within that plan. So that $6,000 is, and so what has happened with Lorraine leaving is that they've brought in Zoe Carlson, who works for the county, and already wearing 2 or 3 hats, and she's going to add this hat. You know, the Ventura River is our watershed, basically, and so the idea of having someone just kind of, you know, this is like a third or fourth thing that they think about is a little concerning to us. So we would really like the opportunity to use staff time to really keep that management plan alive and keep forwarding the projects and programs that are in it. We've listed ourselves as leaders in several of those projects, but we also see as a coalition, we could also help keep some of the other players, the stakeholders moving forward, such as the San Antonio Creek campaign. That's outside the capacity of us because there's a lot of infrastructure stuff. But we can use our resource center to bring those stakeholders together and make sure that type of work continues on.
And another quick question, I assume you have the concurrence with the city manager on engaging an audit on the carry-out bag ordinance?
I wouldn't put it that way. I'd asked him if there had been actually.
And there has not been, right?
Right.
So are we okay with contracting audits? Okay, good, thank you.
And as you know, that was a baby of the Green Coalition. We're very eager to see some metrics around that.
Councilmember Clapp?
To extend that, it maybe adding styrofoam to that as well would be a good idea. So you combine that with, I mean, if we do grant this additional money.
Yeah.
To also do an audit of the styrofoam.
We could do that for sure, yeah.
The other question is you have for comprehensive best practices and elimination of where possible, of biocides. Is that, I hate to display such ignorance, is that also rodenticides?
Yeah, biocides is like the big umbrella word.
That's what I thought.
And
so it would also include
I asked somebody
rodenticide?
for that word, so don't worry. Yeah, it's like, how many of us have heard that?
So
But that's-
rodenticides would be part of that?
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, excellent. That's all my questions.
Any other questions from Councilmember?
I don't I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but you encumber a lot more than just in the city of Ojai. Is the county willing to contribute any money to your operations?
They are not. We have gone to them, and they just do not have a not just us, they just do not have a mechanism for supporting nonprofits like cities do, because Ventura City supports a lot of nonprofits. I've been through some of their council meetings, so it's just different governing, I guess.
And then of the money that we are providing to you, how much of that is actually spent on issues that may affect Ojai, but predominantly have to do with areas outside Ojai?
You mean with the proposed funding or just in
With any of the
general?
funding? For instance, you're talking about the dark skies. Well, that only really deals with the city.
Well, it did as far as the benefit that we were offering, free retrofits to city residents. Yeah, but certainly it is a benefit to the whole valley, and we're pursuing the county with that program also. That's a hard one to quantify. I know we have city limits, but the air, water, and food, and all the things that we want to be safe and clean and sustainable, don't have that line in the sand. So it's really hard to quantify that. I mean, as far as the report, any auditing we did, that's obviously related to ordinances and the fact that staff does not have the capacity to follow up on the reporting requirements of ordinances. The creek cleanup we do. So when it says continue on a few of those things, the board has actually axed those. Okay, and I'm really bummed. They're like, my babies and the coalition. But say, for instance, the Ojai Creek Cleanup Day, that is part of the California Coastal Annual Cleanup Day. Ojai Creek right through Libby Park. So this would allow us to continue doing that. And I'll be honest with you, the city of Ojai is the only city in the county that does not participate in that annual statewide program. So we've kind of held that place for our community to be, part of that. So that's another example. I'm sure there's plenty of bikers that come outside the city limits to come to the Bike Valet, but it is obviously right there in downtown as part of the Ojai Day. Most of our workshops and presentations are held at the Chaparral Auditorium downtown, but again, I'm sure people come from all over the community.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's right.
That's one of our, challenges too, is just metrics and evaluation. When you've got 80 hours of work and 30 hours to work with, what do you let drop off? And quite frankly, it's been the metrics and the evaluation, and that's a bummer because that's very valuable to all of us.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Haney first and then Councilmember Clapp.
So, Deborah, thanks for the presentation. The question I have is most of your funding comes from grants and obviously from us, and some in membership I'm seeing here. But what I don't see is I don't see how you're generating income as an entity. You know what I'm saying? I don't. Remember we talked a couple months ago about the recycling center, and I know Harrison Son does that. But how can the Green Coalition create a revenue source other than from public entities or from grants? Has your board thought about that?
Not in the respect of what I think I'm hearing you suggest is maybe some type of business operation that would help fund us as an organization and what we do. I know there are organizations that have that capacity and do that, but most of our funding is membership actually, and then we do have program fees, but we try to make them very affordable. When we had our Graywater workshop, we asked for $25 versus $50. We've got to make this affordable and keep that bar low so that our residents and our members can do this. The couple who did the Graywater workshop in their home is a city resident. They now have Graywater and they are ecstatic. But through a grant from Rotary and the city and whatnot, we were able to all they had to pay for was the materials, and we supplied the instructors.
Well, I guess what I'm looking at is all of this is going to fluctuate based on how good, cities and counties and states are doing, regarding grants and regarding the money that we're going to provide. So if we're having a great year or a great 2 years or a great 3 years, the funding is going to be there. And then in a downturn, there's going to be, very little of no funding. So that's my concern, is that your projections are going up, but your projections are based on a certain type of funding. And I just personally like to see you and your board figure out how you could actually create some streams of revenue that would accentuate the funding that you're getting from grants and from us. That's one thing I'd like to see.
I understand. What I would respond to that with is, in the nonprofit world, I sit in a lot of classes and try to continue to educate myself. That is not unique. In 2008, nonprofits, it was just an implosion for nonprofits, and even big ones that we all rely on. So even as a business, you've got the same thing. I don't think that would be unique to us as a nonprofit, and you still have to operate as a business because you have to work in the black. So we kind of all take that chance. And again, it's capacity. Once we can get a little bit more staff, bring in more membership support, I just feel like it'll be a dominoes effect. I truly believe that we just need to be able to get out there a little bit more, engage with the community. I think we do a darn good job of that as we are, but there's a lot more potential and capacity out there, and that's certainly something. In fact, the recycling center is one of my personal pet interests, for sure.
Okay.
Councilmember Clapp?
Well, I think the Green Coalition has shown that it's a great bang for our buck. We as a city can't have an environmental division. And a lot of larger cities do. They'll have, Encinitas has one. They have a department that does this kind of thing. But we don't have, you're talking capacity. We don't have the capacity to have this here. So for the amount of money that it takes to help support the Green Coalition, we're really getting a lot. And just anecdotally, I used to have a horrible light pollution problem at my house, out in my backyard. At night, I had lights shining in our eyes at night when we're in bed, and a night glow every night. It was really bad. And now, the last month or so, I've noticed I get up, and in the middle of the night, I need to use my iPhone flashlight, because all those lights that were intruding onto our property are gone now. So, like you say, it's hard to quantify, but so anecdotally, I'm telling you, I've seen an impact upon that ordinance. I think it has brought people's attention to how light really does impact us.
Oh, absolutely. We've gotten more calls about it, questioning, can we get brochures? People who have problems sleeping because of neighbors' lights, they have come out of the woodwork, but it's not appropriate for us, nor do we want to be the light police, but I'm telling you, they have come out of the woodwork sharing with us.
And incidentally, I come over the hill down Denison Grade a lot at night, and I've noticed a change there as well. Not dramatic, but it's definitely there. And so I think that what we get for our money with this is really valuable. And I think we need to step up as environmental leaders in this community. I think the fact that we've stepped forward with styrofoam and the plastic bags and our tree ordinances and becoming a tree city and all these things are setting an example to the rest of Ventura County. Like you said, now the county is looking at establishing a night sky ordinance for the rest of the valley. So, and the plastic bag ordinance, they attempted to pass it, it failed, but at the city of Ventura, but it's sort of just gains momentum the more you show that it can work. And around the plastic bag ordinance, I thought, it's amazing. When you go to the store now, there wasn't a lot of kickback on that. People just are walking in with their bags now, and it's just become a routine practice. And I think when you show that taking these small steps, they add up into a big impact on a community, and it's just, really doesn't take that much effort, and to do these few things to make your quality of life better. So personally, I'm in real support of continuing to support the Green Coalition because of what they do offer us. We don't have to pay benefits. You don't have PERS, you don't have all these things, which is a huge overhead to a city. And to have these people that are willing to volunteer their time and devote their time essentially for no pay to do something that's so important. I mean, even Pope Francis has come out speaking about how today we can't put this off into the future generations. This is something we as our current generation need to address this and the degradation of our planet, and it's up to us as a community to be leaders in that. And so I heartily approve of continuing to support the Green Coalition, and I hope my colleagues agree with me.
Any other questions for Deborah? No? Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you for your time.
And I'll open it up to the public if there's any public comment on this item. I have no speakers' cards, but if not, yes, Mr. Quillisi.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I have in the past 5 years been associated with 5 different nonprofit organizations down in LA County. I'm still associated with 3 of them now, and I drive down there 90 miles one way to attend board meetings and that sort of thing. Neither I nor any of my colleagues on any of those organizations have ever been given a dime for what we do. I support the Green Coalition. I think that the council ought to support it to the extent of paying for their out-of-pocket costs. But if I read the lists correctly, it sounds like we really think the Ojai Creek cleanup is important, but if you don't pay us to do it, we're not going to do it. And that doesn't seem to me like the right kind of attitude. We should be talking about volunteer organizations here, and I'm a volunteer in a lot of things right now, and I don't expect to be paid. If I have out-of-pocket, I manage a lot of trusts too, and I take payment for out-of-pocket expenses like stationery, like postage, like if we have to have 1,000 trash bags to go clean up Ojai Creek, very reasonable. But it sounds like we're paying volunteers, so-called, for their time, and I do not support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from public? Yes. Dale?
Thank you. I'm Dale Hansen. I live in the city. I strongly support the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, and I think we should give them the money they're requesting. They work very hard. As Betsy Clapp said, they do a lot for the city and save the city a lot of money in the process of doing what needs to be done in our community. I strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? If not, then I'll turn it back to council. Yes, Councilmember Clapp.
I would like to ask Deborah a question. Do you pay the
Yes,
do you
ma'am.
pay the volunteers to clean up the creek?
Well, that's
Mr.
an oxymoron,
Quillisi
but
was
yeah,
saying
they are.
that we are that you were saying that you wouldn't clean up the creek unless you got paid to do it.
Well, it's more, I mean, volunteers take a lot of management, and all the planning and organizing still has to happen. I have actually tried to do that with volunteers and had them bail on me the last minute to actually help plan and organize. It just feels like after 8 years of this, there comes a point where the type of organization we are and what we're doing in the community, we cannot rely on volunteers 100%. Ojai Trees, I can see it. With us, they are volunteers. In fact, we focus on students for the creek cleanup. We really hit all of the schools, public and private, really hard to bring the kids out here and get into the creek and learn about the litter and whatnot. So the volunteers are not paid. That aside, the 200 hours plus the volunteer time for the Dark Sky Porch Light Project, that's a huge amount of management and coordination. And
So you're basically saying that you need to be able to rely on the management and organization portion in order to mobilize the volunteers who are volunteering their time.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's part
that's
of.
where the money is necessary to assure that you get follow-through with a project, and you don't run the risk of people bailing, like you said, who took on a management position and decided it was too much and they weren't getting compensated, and so they bail, and then you're sitting there
Right.
with this project, and all
That
of a
has to
sudden-
happen. You don't walk away from it.
Yeah, you can't walk away from it. So you're saying that you feel the organization has enough projects and enough things going on that you feel that you need to have compensation with within the organization for a certain number of paid people to help facilitate the volunteer participation?
Yeah, and support the community. I mean, just I've been relying on volunteers for website maintenance and social media and all of that for a long time. It's a hard row.
And printing things and artwork and
Yeah,
things of that
it's-
sort? Okay.
Could I ask if you're,
It's really
could I
hard.
ask what these management positions are making compared to the hours that they're putting in? Is there a number? Is it even, I mean, could you say that, are you paying these management people top dollar or the average or?
Sure, I'd be glad to answer that. Okay, so this is where we're at. We've kind of grown into this. 8 years ago, I started as executive director, worked for free, had a full-time job, did this on the side. After 2 years, I started getting a $300 monthly stipend. And then that's creeped up to a $1,000 monthly stipend. And then I became an employee, and we also hired Noel to assist me. So on the books, I've been working 25 hours a week at $18.34. I work 40-plus hours a week for a long time now. Noel makes $15 an hour with no benefits, and I don't have benefits either. So what we're proposing in your budget, what you saw, part of that was to be able to bring on an executive director who can focus on the fundraising and membership development, strategic planning, and all those things, so we're here in 100 years, should we need to be. We have offered Russell, he's going to work part-time as an executive director, which I understand in the nonprofit world is very unusual, but 25 hours a week at $25 an hour, no benefits. I'm now going to be on the books at $20 an hour for 40 hours of work. Noel is getting a raise after 5 years to $16 an hour, and probably going to be working about 10 hours a week. That's our staff.
Great, thank you. Any further questions in that particular item? No? Then I'll, thank you, Deborah.
Okay.
I'll turn it back to council. Mayor Pro Tem
I
Blatz?
just want to say, I don't think there's any question that we're going to continue our support for the Green Coalition. I think the question is, are we going to continue the support as we originally appropriated at 25,000, or are we going to increase it to 50,000? I think that's our discussion. I don't think anybody's objecting to us raising it from what we did last year of 10 to this year at 25, and that's what we did during the budget process. So I think that's where we need to focus in on our discussions.
Councilmember Haney?
I just wanted to tell Deborah, that's a lean machine. Lean machine.
I wanted to comment. I mean, I have the benefit I've stated before of being the liaison to the Green Coalition. So I could see the hard work that the board puts in, that the lean team puts in terms of managing all their programs and all the benefits that Ojai has from these programs. And I see that there is a clear understanding that they're trying to focus on other mechanisms to develop funds. They're being very proactive. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to solve that issue, but I think that's separate from what they're requesting from us. And saying that too, and one of the meetings that I sat in as a Transportation Policy Committee for SCAG said that Ventura County was the only county to not put in their fair share in terms of per capita for nonprofits, just in general, out of all the counties that they're associated with Los Angeles County, Imperial County, Riverside County, and San Bernardino County, and even Santa Barbara County. So it was just an eye-opener how much nonprofits struggle in Ventura County, just to start off with, how the money is very lean. I look at this, I do look at it, as Mayor Pro Tem Blatz said, as whether we're going to fund him another $25,000. And I look at this list that they're giving me, and I think Mayor Pro Tem Blatz did ask a lot of good questions in regard to how many of these programs really do benefit Ojai in this city. And looking at it, I think personally, after reading the list, that a lot of these programs directly benefits the city. And it has, obviously, also direct the whole valley in general, which also leads the question why the county isn't supportive of this coalition. But I think, again, from Councilmember Clapp, reasoning of we're really getting our bang for our buck, I think that it is reasonable. There is still obviously that unknown on how the city is going to be able to fund this, but I do think that, in my point of view as elected officials, we need to think about the environment. I think we all run on the item of having, being environmentally cautious and being about the environment in terms of when thinking about Ojai, but we don't have, unfortunately, that department because we have a lean staff too. And if we could contract with another organization that will promote environmental issues that have direct impact to Ojai, I think it's a no-brainer in my book. I would be in support of this. I would add, just for clarity in the future, how some of these programs are going to be designed. I know right now we're in the state or the coalition was in the state of eliminating some of these projects, so they're still not worked out. But I would just request that in the future they be better defined, just for my purposes of knowing where the city money, or where the taxpayers' money is going and how it's going to be distributed. That's my only request, but other than that, open to other comments. Yes, Councilmember Clapp?
Yeah, just one thing to keep in mind too. We contributed a large amount of money to the Ojai Visitors Bureau for several years in a row. I forget, Mr. Clark, how much money a year did we give to the Visitors Bureau?
I think it was $165,000 or something in that range.
For 3 years. And has that now been reduced, or are we still giving that much money?
We're giving $50,000 now.
Right, because now it has been so successful for them, and with the passing of the T-bid,
yeah,
they have another revenue source. So it just shows you when someone has revenue as an organization, that gives them legs. We all know that you need revenue in order to grow and become more effective. So I would like to move to, how would I word this? How would I word this motion? Consider proposal for the $50,000 worth of funding, so it would be not 50,000, it would be an increase.
Move to increase the allocation, the authorization for the Ojai Valley Green Coalition to $50,000.
I don't think we ever approved the 25,000.
We did in the budget, didn't we?
Yes.
It was just allocated within the budget, right?
Correct.
That's true.
So I think we just make, if your motion is to do 50,000, it's just to do 50,000.
We would understand.
That makes sense.
Okay,
And it's an appropriation, therefore, of that amount.
I would have moved to appropriate $50,000 to the Green Coalition for fiscal year 2015-2016. Is that adequate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second. Roll call. I did.
I'll say. Clapp.
Yes.
Wyrick.
Yeah, I have to abstain for reasons already stated during the budget time. Be happy to elaborate, but I need to.
Haney.
Well,
Your mic.
Deborah, I'm going to vote yes, but again, I'm just looking at the fact you're bringing an executive director on, and with that new body and that new position, I'm just hoping that that your board starts looking at revenue streams. That's what I'm going to be looking for in the future. So it's a yes.
Blatz
Yes.
and Lar.
Yes. I am gonna say we're just about to hit 10:30, and so we're gonna start with item number 5, but I do have one speaker card for item number 6, so if I could table this item and allow the speaker to comment on item number 6, because we're not gonna be hearing item number 6, so we wouldn't want you to just leave with no comment after you staying with us till 10:30 at night. So I'm gonna, so what's the right motion?
It would be to start item 6 and then immediately table it and then start item 5, pardon me, immediately table it, then take up
Item number 6.
item 6.
For public comment.
Perhaps just for purposes of public comment.
Yes. Yes, and I will move.
So moved.
So request for proposal, building inspection, plan check code, and enforcement service. I have a speaker card, Vicky Carlton.
Nobody's second.
Byrne. Vicky Carlton Byrne. Mhm.
Yes.
I live on Montgomery Street.
At least I got an motion.
Do I get a prize for staying up past my bedtime?
Yeah.
Okay. One of my main concerns about item number 6 is, which calls for an issuance of an RFP for, among other things, code enforcement. I have to say that I strenuously object to privatizing code enforcement on a number of fronts, starting with the fact that I believe it creates an adversarial relationship between city government and its residents. And I would ask the question, do you really want a city that relies on a revenue stream that depends on the continuing wrongdoing of its residents? I don't, and I haven't yet found anyone else who does. Then there's some other questions that I have. Will the private party code enforcer make the same amount of money as they would working directly for the city? If so, then the employer is going to add a percentage to their salary, and the city will be spending more for the same work. Then, in order to justify continuation of their contract with the city, more violations will be forthcoming. I believe this is the quickest way to alienate your constituency and set neighbor against neighbor. My husband put it this way: fines should be punitive in nature, enough to motivate a change in illegal behavior, not as a form of income for the city or a private party. And of course, I would add they should also never be used for harassment of citizens. I just really, really am uncomfortable with the concept of farming this out and the lack of control that you would have over a third party, and as well as setting in motion this train that you can't stop with raising money to justify the further it just gets to go in a cycle. There's already a lot of, if any of you have looked at any of the social media, there's a big outcry about the code enforcement in this city. I read something, and I didn't have time to confirm it with the individual who posted it, said that they got some sort of a violation, and the code enforcement person who talked to them said, oh, well, I've written 20 on the street today. That's not what I want to see. I don't want to see that from the city, from a city employee, and I certainly don't want to see it from an outside agency who then, like the street lights, the camera lights in Ventura, it's an outside firm who makes money. The city can sit there and just take in the revenue, and somebody else does the dirty work. I just am totally opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll make note of those comments when we bring up this item, hopefully in the next agenda, in the next city council meeting. And so I'm going to move to continue the rest, including this item, to next city council meeting, and then we'll take up the last item, which is item number 5. And item number 5 is Community Development Operational Assessment. I'll turn it over first to staff for a report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Kathy Wald and I have been working to improve the processes in the Community Development Department, and we're kind of going from a situation where we had a minimal level of service to a situation where we're more up to speed with the state of art. But I think in doing that, there's need for review of our processes to make sure that we're meeting the needs of everybody involved. And so this process review is undertaken by an independent outside expert, and they would interview council members, they would interview chairs of the various commissions, they would interview customers, they'd interview staff, and try and get an understanding of the perspectives, the problems, and the issues that all of those parties have, and then develop a program to make our processes work better. This is a pretty common procedure used in other cities. This particular firm has done at least 30 of these in this particular area, so they're quite experienced in this. I did do a project like this in another city, and it actually worked very well. I think everybody sees the process from a completely different perspective, and a lot of what it did is it helped everybody understand the other interests that were involved and develop things that made it work more smoothly for everybody. So the price tag on this is $25,000. As I indicated earlier, there is sufficient money in the general fund to fund it if that's the decision of the City Council.
Any questions from council members in regard to the staff report?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
I don't see any timelines.
Good point.
Are there any?
I don't think we have a specific timeline here, but it's intended to be a fairly quick review. It would just take several months.
I'm uncomfortable with that. It says the agreement would last 2 to 3 months in terms of beginning immediately on page 5-11. And they're going to perform on a not-to-exceed basis. The final presentation is optional and not included in the 25,000?
That's right.
And I guess anticipating the engagement lasting 2 to 3 months does not mean it's actually going to be done in 2 to 3 months. And I'm a little uncomfortable not having a time certain for conclusion. I'll throw that concern out to my colleagues.
I don't think there's any problem coming back and approving it with a time certain, but I think that the time frame that they have proposed is similar to what has been their experience in other organizations, and a lot of it's a coordination issue. The actual interviewing process, once it occurs, goes pretty fast, but you have to find time when everybody's available to be interviewed and get them together for a focus group or whatever it might be. But I think you could stipulate a
Well,
time frame.
I'll probably suggest a time certain then, and I also, another comment I want to make is that I am not comfortable with the language that the final report, would be an additional cost, to the council and our planning commission. This is a report that should go to the city council. I don't think it's a report that is appropriate to go to the planning commission.
I have no problem with that.
And-
That's absolutely true.
So my suggestions, if my colleagues don't have any other comments, is that we make this 3 months and that we delete planning commission, so the final report will be made to the Ojai City Council, and that we ask for a quote for a presentation of the final report to be reported to the council. Those are my comments.
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah. Any other questions in regard to the report? I'm going to turn it, I'm going to open public hearing. Anybody from the public wanting to comment on this item? No? If not, then I'll turn it back to council. Do we need a motion in regards to with those amendments that Councilmember Wyrick wanted to add?
Yeah, you should approve a motion with those and appropriate the funds.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'll weigh in on the motion since I complicated the issue.
I would say clarify.
Yeah, clarify the issue. I make a motion, we approve with that the timeframe for conclusion of this engagement be 3 months from tonight. Okay?
Yeah, that's
Well,
fine.
let's define 3 months. What 3 months
Typ-
do we
Yeah,
want?
typically we do it 3 months from the time the contract's executed, but I think that'll happen quickly, so.
Well, why don't we say 3 months, when do you anticipate contract, and I'll modify.
Take about a week.
Okay, so why don't we say 3 months, what's today?
The 13th.
So 3 months from the October 20th.
Or from the signing of the contract, maybe.
Well,
January 20th. The contract is 3 months.
the performance of the, good, thank you from the peanut gallery. The performance of the contract will have been 3 months of contract execution. That the request will be made for a quote for the final report, and that the final report will, if that option's implemented, will go to the Ojai City Council.
Great.
You know, we can also attach that if we want a date certain, that we have this report given to us at the second council meeting in January.
If we accept the extra cost.
And I think, just as a point of clarification, as I understand the proposal from the consultant, the extra cost is to have the report presented to the council in a meeting, but the report itself is built into the proposal.
Right, we'll get that cost.
So we always get the report, but the extra,
It's the question, whether it's presented.
whether they give us a presentation or not is the extra cost. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value added to let you interact with the person who's making the report.
So let us know the cost. Is that clear enough, my motion? Okay.
And then appropriate $25,000.
And appropriate $25,000 for this effort, yes.
I'll second.
Clapp,
No.
Wyrick,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Blatz.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes. We're going to table the rest of the items for future city council meeting, but right now, we're just going to take a quick recess from the council meeting and convene as Ojai Redevelopment Successor Agency, and I will entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Clapp,
Yes.
Wyrick,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Blatz.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes, and I will adjourn the Ojai Redevelopment Successor Agency and reconvene as Ojai City Council. And we already did the reports from council members, so I am going to turn oral reports from city manager.
Thank you. I just wanted to report that when the Libby Bowl was approved, the city council advanced $1.3 million to cover the pledges associated with that. And this week, we got the final payment of $17,000, so the full amount that we advanced has now been repaid.
Awesome.
Congratulations to the
Great.
community.
Yes. I do want to, I had a request from Councilmember Clapp, real quick.
Yes, real quickly, I apologize, I didn't mention earlier, I handed out to the council members the Ojai Land Conservancy request to review a potential letter of recommendation to the Ojai District Ranger for a trail that the Land Conservancy has been blazing up the mountain and rehabilitating for quite a while now. And Rick Bisaccia, the stewardship director, has requested that we send a letter of support for this trail. I think it'd be easier for maybe the council to review the papers that I gave to you and maybe bring it back to the next meeting and we can discuss giving staff direction to whether or not we want to send a letter supporting the trail. Okay?
Great.
And the details are in there. It's not as simple as I stated.
Okay.
I mean, it is and it isn't.
Perfect.
That's it.
Mr. Summers, any report?
No, I don't think I have any report. Actually, I do have a report. Sorry, I wanted to note, we had a good meeting today of the Historic Preservation Commission Ad Hoc Committee, looking at the Historic Preservation Commission ordinance amendments. And after today's meeting, I'm going to make the final edits to the document. Then we're going to bring that to the Historic Preservation Commission's meeting in November, I forget the exact date, it'll be the second Thursday, then the recommendation of the ad hoc committee, assuming the full commission agrees, will be to then also bring it to this December meeting, their next HBC meeting, with the goal of bringing in a wider community discussion on the proposed ordinance amendments, in particular bringing in owners of sites of merits that are not landmarked, because one of the proposals afoot from the ad hoc committee is to add some requirements to sites of merits projects that are not there at the moment, and looking at making sure that that segment of the community is brought into the discussion. And then after those two HBC meetings, assuming it is recommended for approval, then it would come to the council. So we're looking at that coming on your agenda January, February, depending on HBC timeline. But I want to let you know that that is progressing. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief?
No, I would just echo Chief Plott's comments, and if you can make that town hall meeting, if you're interested about El Nino on Thursday. I know Councilman Wyrick made one of them. It's very informative, and encourage everyone at home to sign up for VC Alert. You can text VC Alert to the number 313131. Takes a minute to sign up, and you can get information, evacuation information, all of that type of stuff regarding the El Nino floods if they do happen. So It's a good resource to have.
I want to echo that. That VC Alert is a great program. Everybody should sign up.
3131.
Yeah, you text the word VC Alert to 313131, and then you could enter one address or multiple addresses, and if an event is occurring around those addresses, we'll send out a blast and give you information as to what's going on.
And when the phones are down or something.
Exactly.
It's a
Because
great
reverse
program.
911, that's land-based to your house, so if the phones are down, you're not going to get the information. And you're not going to get information all the time. If there's just police out front, we're not going to be sending it and bugging you. It's going to be for serious events. So I'd encourage everyone at home to sign up for that.
Great. And thank you for earlier tonight, willing to answer some questions. I know they were tough, but yeah. and just in regards to the emergency preparation plan, should the city get involved to a certain degree in terms of marketing or alerting things, putting on the website, getting involved a little bit more? Because a lot of the organizations, they mention a bunch of players in this valley, except for the city of Ojai. So it just worries that we're not in coordination with the rest of the agency, or are we, or how does that work?
So in addition to the public meetings, there's staff level meetings, and so we're involved in those. So
Okay.
we're coordinating our emergency response with that of the other agencies.
Okay.
But your point is good about posting information for the public on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Watch it not rain.
Yeah. It's going to rain. Ms. No, any other, Mr. McClary? No? Well, thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.